Chapter 52. She wants to compete in a crossbow? Liang Jiaodo looked at her inquisitively. Chung Lisu whispered, Liang Jiaodo, is there anything else to compete in the crossbow? Liang Jiaodo shook his head. I don't know. There were many competitions in the crossbow, but they were mostly the same. Yin had already shot Flying Bird just now, so it shouldn't be difficult for him to compete in the other competitions. But what she meant was that she was definitely going to win against Wang Ba. But was there anything that Wang Ba couldn't do that she could do alone? Wang Ba was stunned at first, but then he scoffed disapprovingly. Go ahead and say it. At most, he would say that it was a tie, he thought. Yin smiled and walked to Chung Lisu's side. Suddenly, he reached out and pulled a hairband that bound Chung Lisu's long hair. Chung Lisu was stunned. By the time he reacted, his long hair was already loose. He said, What are you doing? I'm sorry, brother, Yin smiled. Since you want to become sworn brothers with me, I don't think you'll be stingy with a hairband. Let me borrow yours. But I can. Chung Lisu carelessly ran his hands through his hair and muttered, This is too sudden. Besides, why don't you use your own hairband? Yin obviously had one too. I see that brother's hairband is much more exquisite than mine. Maybe I got lucky and borrowed some of your luck. Yin lied without batting an eyelid. Who didn't like to hear nice words? Chung Lisu immediately beamed with joy. Well said. Well said. Just use it. Everyone didn't understand why he took Chung Lisu's hairband. They watched as Yin slowly wrapped the hairband around his hands and covered his eyes. Everyone gradually understood what he was doing. The yellow hair band covered her eyes tightly. She reached behind her head and gently tied a knot, then said, It's done. Yin didn't use his or the others' hairbands because it was a hot day. They had run and practiced archery, so they were already covered in sweat. The people in the barracks weren't particular about it, so their hairbands were more or less stained. However, this nephew of Xiao Ju was different. Looking at the brand new clothes he was wearing, which still carried a fragrance, and his hair tie was also as neat as new. He was exactly the same as his uncle who was obsessed with cleanliness. Presumably, he would be much cleaner to use. Perhaps it was cleaner than Yan's own clothes. Now that he had tied the hairband, he thought that as expected, it actually carried a faint scent of rosin. Yan sighed in his heart. They were indeed uncle and nephew. Yan, what are you trying to do? Wang Ba asked with a frown. He had a guess in his heart, but he didn't dare to admit it. Let's shoot arrows blindfolded, she said. The martial arts practice field gradually quieted down. The summer wind blew by, blowing the long end of her hair ribbon, making the scarlet-clothed youth look a bit more elegant. With a smile on her lips, she held the longbow in her hand and faced Wang Ba's direction. This round, I will definitely win against you. She said these 4 words calmly and decisively, as if she had already predicted the outcome. Wang Ba's face turned green and white. Before he could speak, someone else spoke first. His tone was full of doubt. Blindfolded archery? What are you shooting? Grass targets? Ian shook her head and slightly raised her head. She was blindfolded, so she shouldn't be able to see the sky. However, when she raised her head, it was as if she could see the traces of mountain sparrows flying in the sky. She said, Just like before, I will hunt mountain sparrows. The crowd was in an uproar. She was actually so conceited. But was she really conceited? Yin turned to face Wang Ba again. She smiled and asked, Can I? Can I? These 2 words were just like when Liang Jiaodo asked her that question. She answered readily, Can I? Now, the 2 words, can I, were already at the tip of his tongue, but Wang Ba couldn't say it. Whether he was a bandit or went up the mountain to hunt and kill people, it was all for a purpose. Blindfolded archery, he wasn't blind. It was meaningless to do such a thing. He wasn't the son of a rich family, so it was a novelty. If he was very confident in his bow and arrow skills, then the competition method Yin proposed was the one he was least confident in. He couldn't do it at all. Wang Ba looked at Yin. Yin didn't urge him to quickly give him the result. However, the surrounding recruits were also sizing him up with various expressions, making it difficult for Wang Ba to back down. Could it be that he was going to be humiliated by a yellow-haired brat here today, in front of everyone? If word got out, He would be called a bandit leader who didn't even dare to answer a child's question. Fine. He gritted his teeth and said. However, he felt lucky. Maybe Hien was also tricking him. This brat had always been cunning and strange. Maybe he couldn't do it himself. However, he deliberately acted as if he was extremely confident. He wanted to trick him into giving up and admitting defeat before him. TSK, he wouldn't fall for it. For this round, you go first, Wamba said to him. The youth smiled again. Her posture was light and agile. She nodded and spat out 2 words, fine. Beside the stage in the martial arts field, there was a pavilion. The pavilion was next to the Liangzhou guard station. It was high up and could see the entire martial arts field. There were 2 people standing in front of the pavilion, looking at the youth who was surrounded by the recruits from afar. One of them was wearing red clothes with a black belt around his waist. It was Shun Han. The youth beside him was as cold as ice and had an indifferent expression. It was Xiao Ju. I didn't expect that there would be 2 good seedlings in this batch of recruits. Shun Han sighed and said, that Wang Ba doesn't need to be mentioned. Although he was born a bandit and is unruly and difficult to tame, his bow and arrow skills are indeed exquisite, and he has extraordinary strength. However, the most surprising one is the youth called Hien. He's only 15 or 16 years old, but he's already so outstanding. His temperament is gentle and lovable. After a few more years of growth, he will definitely become one of the best in this batch of recruits. He thought of the conversation he had with Liang Ping. At that time, Liang Ping thought highly of Hien, but Shun Han didn't take it to heart. It was because he thought Hien's aptitude was too ordinary and not worth paying attention to. He didn't expect that he would almost miss a good seedling. He saw that Xiao Ju didn't respond, so he carefully probed, "What do you think, Commander-in-Chief? Gentle temperament?" The youth slowly repeated. After a moment, he said, "I'm afraid you've misjudged. The one who is unruly is not Wang Ba. It's Hien." Hien? Shun Han was a little doubtful. He had seen the youth a few times, and he always had a smile on his face. Wang Ba had provoked him several times, but he didn't get angry. To be honest, a child at this age was hot-blooded and would start a fight if there was a disagreement. Hien was already very restrained and gentle. Commander-in-Chief actually said that Hien was unruly and difficult to tame. For the first time, Shun Han doubted his superior's judgment. Then, Shun Han changed the topic. "Commander-in-Chief, do you think Hien can win this round?" The youth curled his lips and said lightly, "Yes." Chapter 53. On the martial arts field, Hien had already slowly drawn her bow. Blindfolded, you can't see anything. If you can't see the prey, you can only listen to the prey. And there is nothing better than a blind person who can hear everything in the world more clearly. When she was blind, she was also dispirited. A blind person walking in this world had so many inconveniences. If she couldn't even take care of herself, how could she be an outstanding person? She had always been hardworking. She made up for her mediocre aptitude with diligence. But disaster came and instantly took back all her efforts. Even her mediocre aptitude turned into a delusion and turned into ashes. She remembered that when she was unwilling to give up, someone said to her, "If you really want to be strong, so what if you were blind? Even if you were blind, you could be the most different one among the blind." This was not a very good consolation, but it was magically remembered by her. When she was groping and practicing to be able to do things without using her eyes, she often thought to herself, "Be the most different one among the blind." She didn't know if she was the most different one, but she should be considered different from ordinary blind people. She could take care of herself and even take care of others. She could practice swordsmanship behind her back and throw dice. She could also be naughty and secretly hide a child's slingshot to secretly shoot birds. As a blind person, compared to other blind people, her life was not too bad. Since she could do things that she could do when she was blind, there is no need to mention it now. She just temporarily returned to that period of time in the past. The sound of the gong in the forest startled countless birds. The figures of the birds were reflected in the sky. The young man smiled and shot an arrow. The arrow followed the trail of the birds and flew straight up into the clouds. A bird chirped as it was shot by the arrow and fell rapidly. The green arrow reflected the yellow cloth in front of the young man's eyes. It was bright and beautiful. Ian reached out and untied the headband covering his eyes. She didn't even look at the arrow on the ground, as if she had already expected to shoot the prey. She handed the cloth to Wang Ba and smiled. "It's your turn." The surroundings were silent. Wang Ba didn't reach out to take the headband she handed over. Ian did not move. After a long while, Wang Ba lowered his head dejectedly. He did not look at Ian and only said in a low voice, "No, I don't know how to." "You're good. I'm not as good as you." His words were half angry and half sincere. He was angry that he had lost to Hien and lost all his face. He was convinced that Hien's skill of shooting arrows while blindfolded was indeed something he did not know. Even if he started to learn in the future, he might not necessarily be better than Hien. Everyone had to admit their own shortcomings. The recruits finally regained their senses, but they didn't crowd around and cheer. At first, a voice wailed, my biscuit lost. So miserable." Another voice said, "I'm even worse off. I had 10 on credit and they're all gone." Soon after, cries of anguish rose and fell. None of the Liang province guards seemed to have bet on Hien winning the biscuit. Even though he had the support of Xiao Mai and the other 2 biscuits, it was still futile. However, at this moment, a joyful voice rang out. "Ah, I won. I bet 10 pieces of jerky. Haha, I've always said that Chung Li Su, have a good eye for people." Hien was about to leave when he heard this and was stunned. He turned around and looked at Chung Li Su. He did not expect that the person who bet 10 pieces of jerky was Chung Li Su. However, after thinking about it, if it wasn't Chung Li Su, who else would be so generous? Xiao Ju. It would be strange if Xiao Ju participated in this kind of gambling. Chung Li Su ran to Hien's side and looked at Hien with sparkling eyes. "That, Brother Hien, thanks to you, I finally won this time. You don't know, I can't do anything in the capital. I'm not good at literature. I'm not good at martial arts. Even when I go to the casino, I only lose money. I've never won once. Today is the first time I've won. Brother Hien, I must become sworn brothers with you. Today is the day we become sworn brothers. I want to treat you to a drink." Cough, cough. Liang Ping clenched his fist and pressed it against his lips. "Drinking is not allowed in the camp. Then I'll treat you to some tea." Chung Li Su held Hien's hand and looked at Hien as if he was looking at a long-lost relative. There was a genuine closeness. "That won't be necessary." Hien pulled his hand out and stuffed the headband into Chung Li Su's hand. "I almost forgot about this. Thank you for the headband, young Master Chung. There's no need for thanks between us." Chung Li Su giggled. He suddenly thought of something and turned to Wang Ba. "Hey, didn't you forget something?" "What?" Hien did not understand. "Did you forget about your bet?" Chung Li Su said anxiously. "You made a bet with him. If you lost, you would be the head soldier. If he lost, he would have to call you boss. Now that he lost, he has to fulfill his end of the bet." Wang Ba's body stiffened. The people around them started to jeer and laugh. Liang Ping turned his back to them. What happened after this was not something he should be involved in. Xiao Mai and Hong Shan leaned against each other to watch the commotion. Hien raised his eyebrows and looked at Wang Ba. Wang Ba walked step by step to Hien. He was much taller than Hien. Hien was really too small in front of him. His face was flushed red. Even the old scar on his face was so red that it looked like it was going to bleed. Hien noticed Chung Li Su's tightly clenched fists and sighed silently in his heart. Perhaps as the head of the family, he had to place more importance on his reputation. Asking him to call him boss would be even more embarrassing than killing him. Hien was about to say forget it when Wang Ba said in a low voice, "Boss." Hien. She looked up at Wang Ba. Wang Ba thought that she was going to make things difficult for him and said angrily, "I've already called you that. It's your own business if you didn't hear it. I won't call you that again." "I heard it." Hien laughed. "I was just surprised that you actually call me that. A man of his word is worth 9 tripods. I'm not someone who goes back on his word." Wang Ba snorted coldly. "You're lucky this time. In the future, don't provoke me." After saying this, he seemed to feel very embarrassed and didn't want to stay there any longer. He turned around and left in a hurry. Ian thought for a moment and thought to himself, this Wang Ba is indeed a little hot-blooded. He can be considered to know when to yield and when to stand tall. Brother Ian, look at you. You're really amazing. Cheng Li Su came up to him again. To celebrate, let's go. I'll treat you to tea. Ian didn't have time to refuse before he was pulled away by this happy young man. Young Master Cheng took Ian away. In the pavilion, Shun Han asked, Commander-in-Chief, should we go and chase him back? No need, Xiao Ju said. After watching the competition, he seemed to be tired of it and turned to leave. Shun Han quickly followed. He thought of something and looked at Xiao Ju again. He silently calculated in his heart. When the commander-in-chief said that Yin was the arrogant and unruly one, he didn't believe it first. Now, it seemed that it was true. Although Yin was thin and small, he was able to make a bandit leader call him boss. Wasn't he difficult to deal with? If this continued, he would be able to become sworn brothers with the commander-in-chief. However, Shun Han glanced at Xiao Ju's cold face. The commander-in-chief didn't like this guy. Chapter 54. Yin wasn't able to become sworn brothers with Xiao Ju, but Xiao Ju's nephew pestered him to become sworn brothers with her. Cheng Li Su pulled Yin to his room in the garrison. His room was different from the bunks the recruits shared. It was a separate room. Although it wasn't luxuriously decorated, it was much better than the recruits' bunks. There was even incense in the room. The incense was placed in an exquisite fairy ornament. Seeing Yin staring at it, Cheng Li Su explained, This is something I brought from the capital. Uncle doesn't allow me to light it here, so I'll light it secretly. Don't tell him. She looked like a child who was doing bad things behind her parents' backs. Yin thought to himself, Don't mention Xiao Ju. Even if it was her, she wouldn't light it. It was already summer, and the weather was so hot. What kind of incense would it be? Seeing that he didn't speak, Cheng Li Su misunderstood his meaning again. She probed, Do you like this a lot? If you like it, I'll give it to you. She stuffed the incense burner into Yan's hands. It's okay, we're good friends. Yan put it back. Thank you, but I don't have a place to put it. Cheng Li Su thought for a while and nodded regretfully. I'll talk to Uncle later and ask him to give you another room. It'll be the same as mine. Yan, it would be a miracle if Xiao Ju agreed. If Cheng Li Su really did it, he would even call Cheng Li Su Big Brother. All right, you still don't know who my uncle is, right? My uncle is the current commander-in-chief of the Right Corps, General Fian's second young master Xiao, your superior. Cheng Li Su finished in one breath and looked at Yan's expression. Seeing that Yan's expression was normal, she said, Why aren't you surprised at all? Should she be surprised? Yan said, I see that young master's bearing is outstanding, unlike ordinary people. I think young master's uncle is the same. Indeed, like uncle like nephew. These words pleased Cheng Li Su. He revealed a bashful smile, scratched his head, and said embarrassedly, That's not it. I'm far inferior to uncle. My uncle lives next door, but he's out now. Otherwise, I'll take you to see him. Yan thought, That's not necessary. Come. I pour the tea. Cheng Li Su was so busy that she stuffed a cup of tea into Yan's hand. After drinking this cup of tea, we'll be sworn brothers. Yan looked at the tea in his hand, hesitated for a moment, and then put the tea back on the table. Cheng Li Su was stunned. What's wrong? Young Master Cheng, I don't think we should address each other as brothers. It's a mistake, Yan said. She and Xiao Ju were of the same generation, but Cheng Li Su called Xiao Ju uncle. If she and Cheng Li Su became sworn brothers, wouldn't she have to call Xiao Ju uncle in the future? How could she let Xiao Ju take advantage of her? Dream on. How are we of the same generation? Cheng Li Su was puzzled. I'm 15 this year. I heard from Liang Jiao that you're 16 this year. There's not much difference between us. Yan said, You call Xiao? Uncle Commander Xiao. He's not that old, right? Xiao Ju was only 1 year older than her in her previous life, and she had just turned 20. She asked, He's your biological uncle? Yes, we're relatives. Cheng Li Su explained very seriously. It turned out that Cheng Li Su's mother, Madame Cheng, was Xiao Ju's cousin. However, the age gap between Madame Cheng and Xiao Ju was too big. When Xiao Ju was born, Madame Cheng was already married, and the two siblings rarely interacted. However, when Chung Lisu grew up, she liked to stick to her uncle, who was about the same age as her. He Yin recalled that when they were at the Xianchang restaurant, there was a chubby young master who often came to look for Xiao Ju. However, he couldn't remember if he called Xiao Ju uncle. My uncle is excellent in everything. He's 1 in a million in both civil and military matters. I feel proud to be with him, and no one dares to call me a useless young master anymore. Chung Lisu didn't feel ashamed when she talked about her nickname. Now that I'm on good terms with you, and you're as excellent as my uncle, I'm really amazing. Yin was speechless. He didn't know where this amazing came from. Speaking of Yin, Chung Lisu thought of something and asked, "Oh right, since you're so excellent, brother He, what does your family do?" Yin didn't even drink the tea, and he actually called him brother He. Yin didn't know whether to answer his question or correct him first. She said, "My family is just an ordinary family." Chung Lisu saw that she didn't want to say anything else, and it had a deeper meaning. Chung Lisu said solemnly, "I understand. Even experts like you don't want to reveal your whereabouts." Yin thought, is there something wrong with this child's brain? If you're so capable, why did you come to the Liangzhou Guard? Chung Lisu asked. With your abilities, why did you join the army? Yin repeated what he had said to his uncle to his nephew. A real man should make a name for himself. He should be rewarded, build a house, marry a wife, and have children. This life shouldn't be in vain. His nephew wasn't as impulsive as his uncle. The young man with rosy lips and white teeth looked at him for a while, then nodded and praised. Your way of thinking is very good. It's very practical. However, brother He, isn't it a little too slow for you to join the army and make a name for yourself? There haven't been any battles in the past few years, and they say that heroes emerge in troubled times. Now that we're at peace and prosperity, you won't be able to display your martial arts skills. It'll be a waste. Yin was speechless. This child was quite thoughtful. Why don't I point you in the right direction? Chung Lisu moved closer to her and whispered, "You know about the Southern Prefecture soldiers under my uncle, right?" Yin nodded. "I've heard of them. The Southern Prefecture soldiers were established by old General Xiao. They were invincible and undefeated. Among the Southern Prefecture soldiers, there's a cavalry unit called the Nine Flags Battalion." Yin also knew about the Nine Flags Battalion. After Xiao Ju took over the Southern Prefecture soldiers, he cultivated a group of trusted aides for himself. They were mostly used for surprise attacks, and their methods were strange. Other than other matters, my uncle came to the Liangzhou Guard this time to pick some new recruits and bring them back to join the Nine Flags Battalion. Yin was shocked. Didn't the Nine Flags Battalion stop recruiting? That's what they say to the outside world. What's the rarest thing in the world? Talent. Everyone in the Nine Flags Battalion is a talent. Last time, a big brother in the battalion was injured and lost an arm, so he can't fight anymore. Now, he's an official in the Imperial Court. Therefore, if you want to make a name for yourself, get promoted, and get rich, you have to find the right place first. With your skills, and you're one of us, you should go to the Nine Flags Battalion, the young man said slowly. Yin gradually stopped smiling. After a while, she frowned and said coldly, "Have you told anyone what you said just now?" Her gaze was so cold that Chung Lisu jumped in fright. She stammered, "No." "Then remember, you can't say this to anyone else." Chung Lisu nodded subconsciously. "Okay." Yin was satisfied. Suddenly, her eyes curved and the corners of her lips curled up. "But what you said just now was very right." Chung Lisu was confused. The fastest way to get promoted was secondary. She fought for merits on the battlefield too slowly. Even if she really got promoted, she might not be able to come into contact with the He family. However, it was different when she was with Xiao Ju. General Feng Yun and General Fei Hong were sworn enemies. Just based on this point, she could make a lot of news. Moreover, it was much easier to find out about imperial court matters when she was with Xiao Ju. In her previous life, she never thought about having any entanglements with Xiao Ju. Now, she had to rack her brains to become Xiao Ju's confidant. This was really inconceivable, but it was also a coincidence. Yin finished the tea in her teacup in one gulp. She stood up and said, "I want to join the Nine Flags Battalion." The end of the first volume. Chapter 55. The summer days in the Liang Province Guard Institute were long and unbearable. Every day was arduous training, dry and tedious. However, the days passed like this. After the minor summer came the great summer, and not long after the great summer, it would be the beginning of autumn. The training under the scorching sun allowed the Liang Province Guard recruits to quickly develop excellent endurance and determination. Every month, apart from crossbows and early morning running with weights, they also had to practice the whip, blade, footwork, formation, spear, blade, and equestrian archery. There was less training in equestrian archery because there were limited horses in the Liang Province Guard. "Ehigu, your biscuit. Shall I pass the biscuit to Hien?" The biscuit had been baked over a charcoal fire, crispy and salty. With one bite, even the crumbs were steaming hot. Hien chewed 2 bites of the biscuit and gulped down a large mouthful of water. He felt his empty abdomen instantly warm up, an indescribable comfort. Hongshan stared at Hien and asked curiously, I think something's wrong. You said you eat the same as us every day, and sometimes you even get special treatment. Why are you still so skinny, so small?" He swallowed back the word short. Hien, could he blame her? Her sworn brother, that useless young master, Chung Li Su, came over every few days and secretly gave Hien some food. Sometimes it was a handful of pine nuts, sometimes it was a few pieces of jerky. Once, he even gave Hien a bowl of soup, saying he stole it from his uncle. Every time he gave it to him, Chung Li Su would be especially nervous. Quick, quick, quick. Eat here. Don't let my uncle see." It was like secretly visiting a prisoner. Hien sometimes really didn't want to eat. Why bother? But when he thought about it, he felt like he couldn't live without food. Moreover, the food Chung Li Su gave him was really quite delicious. Even this kind of special treatment didn't make Hien look any sturdier. On the other hand, he was busy training every day and sweated nonstop. After a few months, he lost a lot of weight and looked even more pitiful. However, a few days ago, this pitiful little fellow had displayed a stunning display of skill in the Liang Province Guard's crossbows, making the mountain bandit Scarface call him boss and making countless new recruits lose their biscuits. The memory of that was still fresh in their minds. Hien could be considered a famous person now. After that, no one came to challenge Hien for the time being, and Hien was happy and relaxed. She was still thinking about how to get Xiao Ju's attention so that she could enter the 9 Flags Battalion. Today, he was practicing the long spear. Most of the spears on the martial arts practice field were made of thick wood. The shaft of the spear was tough and durable, and the tip of the spear was short and sharp. The head instructor swung his spear on the stage, and the recruits below followed suit. After practicing for a while, they also had some results. Hien was not good with spears. She was used to using swords. Now that she had become Lady He, it was even more inconvenient for her to use a spear. She always felt that her hands and feet were tied. After Liang Jiaodo finished practicing a set of spear techniques, he let the recruits practice on their own. He walked down the stage to inspect Hien. When he walked to Hien's side, he couldn't help but take a few more glances at her. After all, Hien's skill with a bow last time was really hard to forget. Of course, this new recruit was highly valued. However, these days, Liang Jiaodo also noticed that Hien's whip, blade, footwork, spear, and knife skills were not bad, but they were far from the level of stunning. The only thing that surprised him was her equestrian archery. However, because there were no competitions these days, he could only see a little of it. She trained seriously every day, including crossbow and running with weights. She never slacked off. However, Liang Jiaodo still had a feeling that this young man seemed to be holding back. What he showed every day was only a part of it. He walked to Instructor Du Maodu's position. Instructor Du was also patrolling. A few instructors surrounded him and pointed at a recruit. They were talking about something. Liang Ping walked over and heard them talking. As expected of a family that runs a martial arts school. "Look at that spear technique, it's amazing." "I say, he's actually more skilled than you. Old Du, I have never seen this set of spear techniques before. This kid's age is not old. I estimate that he is only 17 or 18. He must have been practicing since he was young. Liang Ping asked, "Who are you talking about?" "That, Instructor Du's recruit. The one standing at the far left of the front row. He is big and tall. Do you see him?" Liang Ping looked in the direction he was pointing. Sure enough, he saw a young man in martial arts clothes practicing his spear. This young man had thick eyebrows and big eyes. His facial features were regular. Between his eyebrows, there was an air of perseverance. There was also a hint of arrogance. His steps were steady, and the spear in his hands was dazzling. Moreover, it was not just for show. Liang Ping could feel that every step he took was filled with killing intent. Good. Liang Ping could not help but praise. He is indeed good. Du Maodu also felt proud. I have tested him a few times before. He's really skilled. His name is Jiang Jiao. His father is the owner of a martial arts school in Beijing. Then why did he come to join the army? Liang Ping was surprised. Although the young master of a martial arts school could not be considered rich, in an ordinary family, he could still live without worrying about food and drink. He has great ambitions. A man has great ambitions. Do you understand? Du Maodu said, I admire men like this. Someone interrupted, I wonder if this Jiang Jiao or old Liang's subordinate, Hien, who is better? As soon as these words were spoken, the surroundings became quiet. Du Maodu looked thoughtfully at Liang Ping. Liang Ping subconsciously replied, Hien is quite talented in archery, but I think his spear skills are average. He is not Jiang Jiao's opponent. What a joke! Hien was so small and thin, while this Jiang Jiao was very tall and robust. Comparing spear arts and archery arts was different. In archery, the prey was grass men, birds, and beasts. In spear skills, two people were competing. If one was not careful, one would be injured and bleed. Jiang Jiao's family ran a martial arts school. He had been practicing martial arts since he was young. Hien was not Jiang Jiao's opponent. If he was beaten to death by Jiang Jiao, where would he find such a godly archer? Old Liang, you can't say that. After hearing his words, Du Maodu did not give up. He turned and hooked his arm around Liang Ping's shoulder. Hien, your subordinate, was always behind at the beginning. In the end, he was able to run easily. In the beginning, he couldn't even draw his bow. In the end, he could shoot blindfolded. If you say he can't do it now, he might be able to do it 10 days later. As an instructor, you can't be too protective of the recruits. After all, they will have to go to the battlefield in the future. The surrounding people echoed, Yes, yes, old Du is right. Old Liang, you can't be so protective. Round my ass. Liang Ping thought angrily in his heart. A group of onlookers who didn't care about the situation. They were up to no good. Liang Jiao, I also want to compete with Hien. Liang Ping turned around. The young man named Jiang Jiao had put down his spear and walked behind him. He probably heard the discussion of the instructors and suddenly said this. Liang Ping didn't answer. He was thinking about how to refuse. Can I? Jiang Jiao asked again, as if he didn't know his dilemma. Chapter 56. Can I? I don't think so, Liang Ping thought. Just as he was about to say it, someone said, Hey, why are you asking Liang Jiao? Just ask Hien. That guy knows what he's doing. If he's willing, then let's compete. If he's not, then forget it. Isn't this a simple matter? That makes sense. Du Mao nodded and said to Jiang Jiao, You can ask Hien directly. But he paused and said, You can compete, but don't overdo it. Don't hurt anyone. Liang Ping had no choice but to watch Jiang Jiao walk towards Hien. When Jiang Jiao arrived in front of Liang Jiao's new recruits, he immediately saw Hien practicing with her spear. It wasn't because she was too eye-catching, but because she was too thin and small in this group of brawny men. Jiang Jiao didn't immediately go forward. Instead, he quietly watched Hien for a while. Hien didn't practice any complicated spear techniques. She simply withdrew her spear and thrust it out. Even though it was the most basic spear technique, she practiced it seriously and didn't slack off at all. After watching for a while, someone noticed him and asked, Brother, why are you standing here and watching us? I'm looking for someone. Jiang Jiao said and strode in front of Hien. Hien was thrusting her spear forward when someone suddenly grabbed the tip of her spear. The person who had stabbed her took 2 steps back. She looked up and asked curiously, "Why are you grabbing my spear?" Jiang Jiao was forced to take 2 steps back from the stab, and a trace of surprise appeared in his heart. This Ian looked like he was dancing with his spear, but when he actually held the spearhead, he realized how powerful this spear was. If it weren't for the fact that his family ran a martial arts club, he would have been stabbed to the ground by an ordinary person. Thinking of this, he put away some of his contempt and looked seriously at Ian. "I heard that, brother. He is unparalleled. I would like to exchange pointers with brother He and the spear. What do you think?" Ian blinked and understood. Was this another person here to challenge him? Hong Shan, who was standing behind Ian, slapped his head. "Oh no. People are afraid of fame, just like pigs are afraid of being fat. When he defeated Wang Ba last time, I knew something was wrong. Look, this is the second person's. There will be more in the future." Xiao Mai's asked. "There are many. There will always be a third, fourth, and fifth." Hong Shan shook his head. "People like to be competitive. What's the point of fighting's win? What's the point?" Ian felt that it was very interesting. She had always thought that if she wanted to enter the 9-Flag Battalion, she would have to let Xiao Jun know that she was an extraordinary hero who stood out from the crowd. However, Xiao Ju didn't come to the training field every day to watch the recruits train. She didn't have a place to show off either. Unless someone like Wang Ba kept challenging her and building her reputation, it would naturally spread to Xiao Ju's ears. But for some reason, ever since she competed with Wang Ba in the crossbow competition, no one else came to challenge her. He guessed that the loss of the biscuit made the recruits lose a lot of energy, so they didn't want to see her for the time being. She couldn't take the initiative to find people and ask them to compete with her. Now, there was another person. If this wasn't giving her a pillow when she was sleepy, then what was? It came the right time. "Okay." Ian placed the spear beside her. "How do you want to compete?" Her answer was so straightforward that even Jiang Jiao was stunned for a moment. He hesitated for a moment and said, "You just need to spar with the 2 of us. Don't overdo it." "Okay." Ian said, "Go get your spear. Let's compete on the training field." "You?" Jiang Jiao hesitated and asked, "Don't you need to wait for 10 days? Ian was stunned and found it funny. Don't you need 10 days every time? Did they think that she needed to perform a ritual in 10 days? A few days ago, she didn't have enough arm strength. Now, besides training every day, she didn't forget to practice stone weights. Although she wasn't as good as a strongman, she was good enough for a normal crossbow." The few instructors who had rushed over after hearing the news huddled together. Someone touched Liang Ping's arm and said, "Old Liang, I've said it before. Maybe your recruit doesn't even care about this competition. You're the only one who's worried about nothing." Liang Ping didn't know what to say. He thought that Ian wouldn't agree. He thought that if Ian rejected, Jiang Jiao wouldn't say anything. He didn't expect that Ian would agree. Did this guy never know how to write the word reject? Or was he so confident that he wouldn't reject anyone who came to challenge him? "I'm looking forward to it." Dumao took off the leather water bag at his waist and drank a mouthful of water. He stared at Ian, who was walking towards the training field. "How about we make a bet?" "No." Liang Ping refused. The recruit who lost the biscuit last time was starved for a whole month. It was scary just looking at him. Now that the recruit didn't want to gamble, why did the instructors want to bet? "He's a coward. If he doesn't want to come, I'll do it." Another instructor said, "I'll bet on the yellow wine that will be distributed at the end of the month. I bet that Jiang Jiao will win." When Cheng Lisu heard that Yin was going to compete with Jiang Jiao, his first reaction was to look for Xiao Ju in the room next door. He rushed over excitedly. Xiao Ju was talking to his personal bodyguard. He frowned when he saw Cheng Lisu. "Cheng Lisu, why are you running around like this?" "Uncle, I'm here to tell you to watch a good show." Xiao Ju signaled for the bodyguard to leave. After the bodyguard left, he asked, "What's the matter?" "My sworn brother He, is going to compete with someone in a spear competition today." Cheng Lisu grabbed Xiao Ju's sleeve. "It's going to start now. It's at the training field. Let's go watch, okay?" "Ian." Xiao Ju raised his eyebrows. He remembered Ian. In just a few short months, This person's name had spread throughout the Liang province guards. First, he ran. Then he went from not being able to draw his bow to not missing his target. Finally, he became Chung Lisu's sworn brother. Chung Lisu would secretly bring food to He Yin every few days. He would turn a blind eye to it and treat it as a child's game. However, this person was determined. Although his talent was average, he would still run to the training field every night after the new recruits went to bed. He would only return to his room to rest at the third watch of the night. Yes, you know my brother too. Chung Lisu pulled Xiao Ju's sleeve and dragged him outside. I heard that this kid took the initiative to look for my brother today. My brother will definitely teach him what real spear skills are. Xiao Ju glanced at him. Sleeve. Chung Lisu immediately let go of his sleeve and hugged his arm instead. He begged, Uncle, just go with me and watch. My brother's really amazing. He's not any worse than the strong men in your 9 Flags battalion. Xiao Ju sneered. He didn't seem to care about what Chung Lisu said. However, he didn't stop and followed him out. Chung Lisu sighed in relief. He thought to himself, Brother, this is all I can help you with. Chapter 57. The high platform on the training field was usually the place where the head instructor spoke. The open square field was a good place for sparring. The recruits gathered around the high platform and looked at the 2 people on the stage. Jiang Jiao had already received his spear. He was tall and sturdy and looked very valiant. Probably because he had been practicing martial arts since he was young. He looked different from the other recruits. His appearance was also very good. If one were to be with this person, they would feel very at ease. Ian was standing opposite him. Compared to him, Ian looked more like a teenager who had not yet matured. He was short and thin, but his facial features were delicate. After such a long period of training, he had been under the sun all day long. Although this teenager was tanned, compared to the other recruits, he was very pale. Standing there, he did not look like a recruit. He looked more like a young master from a rich family. He was gentle, handsome, and cute. Jiang Jiao raised a spear. You first. Quite considerate. He Yin smiled and said, Then I won't be polite. She held her spear in front of her. Her eyes moved slightly, and she rushed forward. Jiang Jiao's face changed, and he went forward to meet her. The 2 figures were entangled in a fight. Pung, 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 pung sound were heard. In an instant, they seemed to have exchanged more than 10 moves. Both of them took a few steps back and looked at each other. He Yin looked at the other, her smile unchanged. Jiang Jiao looked at He Yin and could not hide his surprise. As soon as they exchanged moves, he knew that He Yin was definitely not a beginner with the spear. The 10 moves that she exchanged with him were all dangerous. He could not attack and could not retreat. They were evenly matched. He thought that he had already overestimated He Yin. He did not expect that he had underestimated her. The recruits below didn't understand. They only felt that He Yin and Jiang Jiao hadn't even exchanged a few blows before they stopped. They weren't satisfied and were somewhat dissatisfied. One after another, they discussed, What happened just now? Who had the upper hand? I only drank some water. What did I miss? Did you see it? No, I didn't see anything. Below the stage, the head instructors looked dignified and were speechless for a long time. Du Mao looked at Liang Ping. Liang Ping hurriedly waved his hand. I don't know. Don't ask me. He has never shown this during spear practice. I don't know. The recruits did not understand, but the head instructors saw it clearly. He Yin and Jiang Jiao exchanged moves. He Yin did not lose. Jiang Jiao underestimated He Yin defeated. Jiang Jiao's spear arts were complex and varied, and he was as agile as a snake. He Yin's spear arts looked simple, but they contained power and could easily deflect Jiang Jiao's spear. Liang Ping was half proud and half fearful. He hid his strength too well. If Jiang Jiao did not take the initiative to compete with He Yin, he would only think that He Yin was talented in bows and crossbows. His spear skills were not bad. On the stage, Jiang Jiao stared at He Yin and said, Again. He Yin nodded. This time, it was Jiang Jiao who attacked first with his spear. He Yin met him head-on. The 2 spears were glued together. The red tassels fluttered in the wind. Jiang Jiao's spear was like a snake. Every attack was dangerous and urgent. It went straight for Hye-Yan's face, but Hye-Yan only tilted her head slightly. The tip of the spear brushed past her cheek and hit nothing. Jiang Jiao began to get serious. His spear skills were like a torrential downpour. Spear after spear, he tried to find a flaw in Hye-Yan's defense. But miraculously, the young man was agile. Every time he narrowly dodged, the spear in his hand seemed to become an indestructible shield. It blocked Jiang Jiao's spear and prevented it from getting any closer. Hurry up, go faster. Just a little bit more and he'll be defeated. The recruits below the stage were anxious. Why is Ian only defending and not attacking? Doesn't she know how to use a spear? As time passed, Jiang Jiao's spear skills could no longer support such intensive attacks. He stared at Hye-Yan. He did not know how this seemingly weak young man had such strength and endurance. He did not seem tired at all. He was focused, so focused that it was frightening. In a trance, Jiang Jiao's spear missed its target. He was shocked. He saw the young man opposite him smile. Jiang Jiao did not have time to react. Hye-Yan's spear, which had been defending and not attacking, suddenly stabbed in front of him. He hurriedly used his spear to block, but it was stabbed to the side. Hye-Yan began to attack. The spear is the king of weapons. When weapons meet the spear, they will be defeated. The young man's voice was crisp. It was neither loud nor soft. The forest was empty. When he spoke, there was an echo. It was just enough to spread across the entire training field. She lowered her body and avoided Jiang Jiao's spear. Then, from bottom to top, she stabbed at Jiang Jiao's face from a tricky angle. The falling spear style is the breaking staff. The left and right flower style is the breaking card style. She moved the spear, and rushed forward again. That's right. The breaking sword, the breaking fork, the breaking shovel, the breaking double blade, the breaking short blade. Her arms seemed to have infinite strength. Even when blocked, she moved forward and stabbed at Jiang Jiao's left and right. Jiang Jiao did not have time to react. He was already in a sorry state. The hooking technique is the breaking whip, the breaking mace. She stepped forward again, the tip of her spear like a storm. Compared to Jiang Jiao's previous attacks, it was not inferior in any way. Furthermore, it was even more accurate, directly grabbing onto every single one of Jiang Jiao's weak points. The breaking short blade, the breaking halberd. Jiang Jiao had been forced to the edge of the training field. He was in a trance. He felt like the young man in front of him was riding a horse to the battlefield. Everywhere he looked, there was a murderous aura. He was like a hot knife through butter. He was unstoppable. He was forced to retreat step by step. He was utterly defeated. The long spear pounced straight at his face. Jiang Jiao hurriedly retreated. Suddenly, his feet slipped and he fell down. His ears rang with the cries of alarm from the recruits below the stage. Jiang Jiao then understood that he had no way to retreat. All of a sudden, a hand pulled him back. The spear was pointed at his forehead. It did not move forward. The young man looked thin and weak, but he was very strong. He pulled Jiang Jiao back to the training field and retracted his spear to his side. A gust of wind blew past, sweeping away the heat from before, leaving only a cool and refreshing feeling on their faces. The flag fluttered in the wind. The birds and insects in the forest chirped. The young man stood straight. His voice was still crisp. There was no tiredness or panting. He was neither fast nor slow. His voice was powerful and resonant. Men do not see a real spear, so they're obsessed with weapons. Once they have a real spear, they see weapons as child's play. Jiang Jiao looked at him in a daze. After a while, he said softly, "You've read the arm record?" The arm record recorded spear and blade techniques. Jiang Jiao had read it because his family ran a martial arts school. His grandfather, his father, his brother, and he had all read it. He had read it before, but he felt that what was written in the book was too exaggerated. No one could really do it. But now, he was here, and he knew that it was because he had not learned enough from this young man. The young man tilted his head and looked at him. He said with a smile, "I've read a little. I understand a little, a little." Chapter 58. The recruits below the stage looked up at Yin. The previous dozen moves were too short for them to see who had the upper hand. However, there was no need for further explanation. He forced Jiang Jiao to the edge of the stage and almost fell down. Jiang Jiao lost. This young man had won once again. Ahigu is so strong, Xiaomai murmured. He's getting stronger and stronger. Hong Shan scratched his head. This kid didn't tell us he could do this before. It's not his first time practicing the spear, Shi Tu said after a moment of silence. That's why that person couldn't beat him. But that's not right, Hong Shan said. He is the young master of a declining family. Does he come from a rich family and usually practice the bow and the spear at home? It wasn't that Ian didn't hear the whispers of the recruits below the stage. This was an excellent opportunity. She stabbed her spear into the ground and took 2 steps forward, saying, "Brothers, I've won again today." She didn't hide the self-satisfaction on her face when she said this. It was even a bit exaggerated, which is a bit glaring. What does this kid want to do? Du Mao asked. No one knew what Yin wanted to do. Yin said with a smile, "I think there will be many people who want to challenge me in the future. Don't worry about me not accepting. I don't refuse anyone. However, we only have 1 match a day." Liang Jiaodo's mouth twitched. This guy, does he think he's setting up the arena? He didn't care about the gazes of others. Whip, saber, spear, saber, equestrian archery, anything in the barracks can challenge me. Don't worry, if I win, I won't take any biscuits. Come if you're willing. Even though they knew this young man had unique skills, his attitude was too arrogant. Too arrogant. How can there be such a person? He's not modest at all. He just beat someone by luck in the bow and spear. He doesn't know his place. Could it be that in the entire Frost State Guard, there is no one more powerful than him? There are tens of thousands of men, but none of them can fight? Yin chuckled and thought to himself, it's not that there's no one who can fight. It's just that the young master who can fight the most disdains to fight with her. She said, "A gentleman's word cannot be taken back. Today, all the instructor brothers are here. I, Yin, am a man of my word. If I win, it'll be a friendly match. If I lose, you can make any request." However, she seemed a little embarrassed. That should be impossible. It would have been better if she didn't say anything. Once she did, the recruits were once again filled with angry words. He is looking down on us. Does he think there's no one in our Liang province guard? Everyone says that 10 fingers have different lengths. This brat thinks he's good at everything. Does he think he's General Fengyan? Forget it, forget it. In a few days, we'll see how he slaps his own face. He put on an arrogant posture on the stage, then slowly walked down the stage. Before she left, she seemed to think of something and said to Jiang Jiao, who was standing to the side with an uncertain expression, "Actually, you're very good at using the spear." Jiang Jiao was stunned. He looked at her, not understanding what she meant. "But you met me. I'm the best." She laughed loudly and walked down the stage, no longer looking at Jiang Jiao's expression. On the other side, Du Mao's face was as dark as water. Yin and Jiang Jiao's competition was nothing, but Yin had just killed Jiang Jiao too miserably. Jiang Jiao might not be able to recover from this setback. This wasn't something he wanted to see. He patted Liang Ping's shoulder and went to Jiang Jiao's side first. He planned to properly persuade this new recruit who had been forced to stand below his horse during his first try, so as to avoid losing a good seedling. In the pavilion next to the martial arts arena. "Uncle, my big brother, he won again." Chung Li Su, who had seen everything, jumped up and pointed in Yan's direction, as if he was the one who had just won the spear competition. He kept praising, "He's really good. No one can beat him." Xiao Ju glanced at him. She didn't want to bother with him and turned to leave. Chung Li Su thought of something and hurriedly ran to Xiao Ju's side, jumping left and right. "Uncle, look at him. He's number 1 in the bow, number 1 in the spear, and from now on, he'll be number 1 in everything. He's the number 1 in the Liang Province Guard, the number 1 other than you, right? Let's wait until he gets number 1. Xiao Ju replied indifferently to his enthusiasm. He's already got number 1 twice. It's only a matter of time before he gets the other number 1s. Also, getting number 1 twice is already very good, isn't it? Uncle, look at him. How many people in the world can you see such an outstanding talent? Isn't he worthy of joining your Nine Flags battalion? Uncle, look at him. Xiao Ju stopped in his tracks and looked at him. Chung Lisu was delighted. He thought he had convinced Xiao Ju. Xiao Ju stared into his eyes and slowly said, "You've been mentioning He Yin a lot recently. You've mentioned the Nine Flags battalion twice. You've never paid attention to the Nine Flags battalion before," he said calmly. Chung Lisu, are you trying to make He Yin join the Nine Flags battalion? Chung Lisu's heart skipped a beat. He knew he was in trouble. This uncle of his was the smartest. He suspected him from the slightest clue. He said, No, I just want you to pay more attention to my big brother. Xiao Ju said, "Do you think I'm stupid or that you're smart?" Chung Lisu stared at him for a moment, then lowered his head dejectedly. "I'm stupid. How do you know about the Nine Flags battalion?" Xiao Ju asked him. The handsome young man's gaze was calm. He did not show any signs of anger, but Chung Lisu felt a chill run down his spine. He answered honestly, "I used to live next door to you. I overheard Chief Instructor Shan talking to you. I knew that the Nine Flags Battalion was planning to recruit new recruits from the Liang Province Guards. So, Xiao Ju chuckled and said mockingly, "So you used this information to curry favor with your big brother?" No, I'm doing this for your sake, Uncle," Chung Lisu quickly denied. Chung Lisu hastily denied, "I have nothing to do every day, so I walk around and look around. Among the new recruits of the Liang Province Guard, only Big Brother, he has the qualifications to enter the Nine Flags Battalion. The others can't even defeat my Big Brother he. So how can they enter your elite cavalry unit? I'm a loyal person." After a moment of silence, Xiao Ju asked, "What did he say?" Chung Lisu was stunned at first. Then he understood that Xiao Ju was referring to He Yin. He said, "After I told Big Brother he about this, he seemed very happy. Also, he said that he wanted to join the Nine Flags Battalion." "He said he wants?" Xiao Ju asked slowly. Chung Lisu shrunk his neck. He felt an inexplicable chill run down his spine. He nodded and said, "He said he wants. Is there something wrong with that?" Xiao Ju chuckled as an indescribable emotion surfaced in his limpid eyes. A moment later, he restrained his expression and said indifferently, "This person has quite the guts and quite the ambition as well." Chapter 59. That day, He Yin was once again in the limelight. On the way back, He Yin even ran into Wang Ba, who was hiding in the crowd. He was there to watch He Yin and Jiang Jiao compete. He wanted to leave after watching, but unfortunately, He Yin saw him. He Yin greeted him from afar. "Brother Wang." Under everyone's gaze, Wang Ba's face darkened. He braced himself and called out "Boss" in a voice as soft as a mosquito's buzz. He Yin looked at him with a smile. He turned around and left as if someone was chasing him from behind. "Go, you're really something," Xiao Mai said enviously. "Things like this will happen more often in the future. You have to get used to it." He Yin stood on his tiptoes and rubbed Xiao Mai's head. Hong Shan saw this and snorted. "You still want to be his boss? You should grow taller first." He Yin shrugged. Man proposes, God disposes. Growing taller was something that couldn't be forced. Perhaps because he was in a good mood, He Yin had a dream when he went back to sleep after secretly practicing, as usual. In the dream, she was standing on the high platform of the martial arts arena. Everyone around her was calling her boss. Chung Lisu ran over and said to her with a smile, "Brother you've entered the Nine Flags Battalion." "Really?" She was very happy. Then, she heard a voice, "Hiru Fei?" She turned around and saw Xiao Ju. He stared at her coldly and said sarcastically, "Are you He Yin or Hiru Fei?" Hiru Fei. When she heard this name, she suddenly woke up from her dream. She sat up and touched her head. She was already sweating profusely. The sky was bright outside. Hong Shan opened the window and saw her wiping her sweat. He said casually, "It's been so hot these days. I think it's going to rain soon. After a few rounds of rain, the weather will turn cold. Damn it, I don't want to spend the summer in the Liang Zhou Guards anymore. I've lost a layer of skin from the heat." He Yin smiled, but he was still a little uneasy. Seeing this, Xiao Mai asked curiously, "Good doesn't look well." Is he suffering from a heat? Would you like some tea leaves? No, it's just hot. He got out of bed and put on his shoes. I'll be fine after I sweat it out. After the morning run, he went to the training field to practice martial arts. Today, he was going to practice his saber techniques. As he practiced, a group of people walked over and stopped in front of Hien. Hien put down the knife in his hand. Do you mean what you said yesterday? The leader asked in a deep voice. This was a bald man with dragon eyebrows, leopard neck, and iron bones. He wore a string of Buddhist beads around his neck. The Buddhist beads shone with a dark light, and each bead was the size of a finger. His hand were holding a large saber with a golden back. He was a lot older than Hien. He must have passed the age of 40. Perhaps he had already reached the mandate of heaven. However, he didn't look the slightest bit relaxed or tired. He was like a top bear. My name is Huang Xiong, the bald man said in a muffled voice. I want to compare notes on saber techniques with you. The surrounding recruits who were eavesdropping on their conversation suddenly became excited. Ah, there's someone. So soon, there's someone. I told you, there are tens of thousands of heroes in the Liangzhou guards. How can we not find someone to teach this kid a lesson? Yes. Destroy his prestige and avenge our biscuit. I think Hien won't be able to maintain his prestige this time. Look at the saber in Huang Xiong's hand. It's not an ordinary weapon. I'm afraid he used to be a ranger. Hien also noticed the saber in Huang Xiong's hand. The body of the saber was red. The back of the saber was extremely thick, the blade was sharp, and the tip was flat and slightly curved. This kind of saber was very heavy. An ordinary person would find it difficult to wield it. However, it was perfect for a hero like Huang Xiong to wield. You have a good saber, Hien praised. Hearing this, Huang Xiong's gaze softened slightly. He said, It's an old friend of mine for 30 years. Hien was speechless. He couldn't help but think of his own Qinglang sword. She was now a new recruit and came out in a hurry. She wasn't like Huang Xiong, who brought his saber to Liangzhou. She wasn't used to not having a suitable weapon. At this time, she was very envious of Huang Xiong. Huang Xiong saw that Hien didn't respond. He frowned and said, Didn't you say yesterday that you wouldn't refuse anyone? Are you not going to accept the challenge now? Hien was surprised for a moment. He smiled and said, No, I'm a man of my words. I could do it now. Under everyone's gaze, she calmly walked up to the high platform of the training field. Below the platform, Liang Ping looked at Hien's movements with a numb expression. Du Mao leaned against a tree and said gloatingly, Hien, your subordinate, really knows how to stir up trouble. Liang Ping wanted to go up and slap Hien. If Du Mao hadn't been so meddlesome yesterday and suggested that Jiang Jiao and Hien fight, Hien wouldn't have gone to the training field. He wouldn't have said such nonsense like setting up the arena. Today's events wouldn't have happened. Now that even Chief Instructor Shun had tacitly agreed to it, Liang Ping couldn't stop it. He could only pray silently in his heart that Hien would be blessed by good luck today and that he would be able to pass the day peacefully. Chung Lisu stayed in Xiao Ju's room. He was bored to death and was scribbling on the small table. His uncle was reading a book sent from Beijing. He didn't know what it was, but he didn't stop reading it the whole morning. Chung Lisu felt a little bored. He was thinking about whether he should go out and look at the training field to find some entertainment for himself. Someone knocked on the door. Xiao Ju said, Come in. It was Shun Han who came in. Shun Han walked to Xiao Ju's side and whispered a few words to Xiao Ju. Chung Lisu moved his chair to the other side and tried his best to listen. He heard a few words. Hien, Huang Xiong, sword duel, training field. For the first time, Chung Lisu's brain, which had always been slow, came into use. He thought for a moment and understood what was going on. Someone wanted to compete with Hien in the saber, and that person was in the martial arts arena right now. He suddenly became excited. His brother was indeed worthy of his title. Yesterday, he said that someone would come to challenge him today. He wanted to go and see now. Chung Lisu secretly put down the pen and paper in his hand. While Xiao Ju's back was facing him, he gave Shen Han a look and tiptoed out of the room. When he reached the door, Xiao Ju said lightly, Chung Lisu. Chung Lisu was speechless. He answered with a sullen face. He felt strange in his heart. His uncle didn't have more eyes than others, so why was he always caught every time he wanted to do something? Chung Lisu jogged to Xiao Ju and said shyly, "Uncle, I'm just going to take a look. My brother is having a sword duel with someone. How can I not go? I have to be loyal. I'll come back to practice my calligraphy after I'm done. I promise I won't be late." Xiao Ju looked up at him. "Did I say you can't go?" "Huh?" Chung Lisu suddenly smiled. "Why didn't you say so earlier?" "I'll go then." He turned around and was about to run away. Xiao Ju said, "Wait." Chung Lisu looked at him suspiciously. Chung Lisu stood up and walked out with Shinhan. "I'll go too." Chung Lisu was stunned. "Isn't your brother going to enter the 9 Flags Battalion?" The young man smiled. "I also want to see how he plans to enter the 9 Flags Battalion." Chapter 60. Hien was thinking seriously in front of the weapon rack beside the high platform in the martial arts practice field. She didn't use many knives in the past, so it was really inconvenient. Most of the knives on the weapon rack were willow leaf knives and large ring knives, which weren't very convenient for her. She thought about it again and again, then reached out and picked up a small knife on the lowest shelf. The recruits who were staring at her movements were all stunned when they saw this. Those who didn't understand asked, "Why is this knife so small? It's not even as long as a person's arm." Jiang Jiao was very knowledgeable. Upon seeing this, he said, "This is a pair of Mandarin duck blades. It's not just one blade." The Mandarin duck knives were indeed not big, only as long as a person's forearm. The 2 knives were sealed in the same scabbard and could be hidden in sleeves or boots. The blade was wide and thick, only a few inches in front of the tip of the knife, making it easy to backhand and block. He slowly pulled the knives out of the scabbard. One was slightly longer and the other was slightly shorter. Because very few people usually use Mandarin duck knives, the knives were actually quite new. "Not bad," she praised in her heart. She played with it in her hand and felt that it was okay. Wang Ba also came to the bottom of the platform and saw the Mandarin duck knives in Hien's hand. He was stunned for a moment and said, "He actually uses Mandarin duck knives?" Huang Xiong on the platform was also puzzled. He saw Hien pick the knives again and again. After picking this one, he looked at Hien differently and asked, "Double knives?" Hien nodded. "Double knives? I didn't expect you to know how to use double knives at such a young age." Huang Xiong said, "You really know everything." Hien answered humbly, "It's all forced by life." The people below didn't feel good when they heard this. Dumao reached out and touched Liang Ping. "What does Hien's family do? Forced by life? How can he be proficient in all 18 kinds of martial arts? Was he kidnapped when he was young and became a street performer?" "You're asking me, but who should I ask?" Liang Ping said angrily. He even knew how to use Mandarin duck knives. Who would use Mandarin duck knives in a decent family? Most Mandarin duck knives were used by the underworld. What kind of person was this? Without another word, Huang Xiong slowly drew his long saber from its scabbard and nodded slightly at Hien. "Brother He, please enlighten me." Hien thought to himself, how could it be little brother? Even if she was 19 years old in her previous life, she should still call Huang Xiong uncle. Now, Chung Lisu called him big brother. If he followed Chung Lisu, he should call Xiao Ju uncle. Now, he called Xiao Ju uncle, but Huang Xiong big brother? Huang Xiong was old enough to be a Xiao Ju's father. As she was thinking this, Xiao Mai below the stage cried out, "Ehigo, be careful." Then she saw Huang Xiong rushing over with a knife. The golden-backed broadsword was wielded vigorously by this big man. He tilted the tip of the sword to the left and slightly shifted his right foot. He turned around and slashed at Hien. Hien was startled. She crouched down to avoid the attack and used the back of her saber to push the tip of the opponent's saber away. With the kite saber in front and the Mandarin duck knife behind, she also closed in on Huang Xiong. Huang Xiong's brute strength was great. With a heavy swing, he knocked away Hien's saber. Hien aimed at him and threw her saber. Huang Xiong tilted his head to avoid it. Hien flipped over and raised her head to catch the throwing saber. The two of them retreated a few steps and were in a deadlock. They stared at each other. Huang Xiong was not Jiang Jiao. After all, Jiang Jiao was still young. Huang Xiong's saber had been with him for 30 years. The man and the saber had already formed an excellent tacit understanding. When they fought, Hien had already experienced that this man's skill was above hers. Hien had to end the fight quickly. Otherwise, she would be slapping her own face. Hien calculated in her heart. Huang Xiong's heart was also in turmoil. For so many years, he had fought with thousands of people. Some were good, some were bad. But this youngster was so young. Just now, he threw and caught the saber smoothly and smoothly. How'd he do it? Did he start using a saber when he was 3 years old? Hien thought that Huang Xiong was tall and sturdy. His saber technique was fierce but clumsy. He lost because he was not nimble enough. It seemed that her choice of the Mandarin duck knife was just right. This way, she could defeat him in terms of speed. Her eyes moved slightly. "Continue!" she shouted and stepped forward to meet him. Huang Xiong held the saber in his right hand. He took a diagonal step to the left and thrust his saber straight at Hien. Hien's Mandarin duck knife stabbed forward and clashed with him. Although she looked thin and small, her strength was not weak. The two sabers stuck together, but Hien still had another saber. She twirled the other saber, bent her elbow, and raised the back of the saber above her head. She stabbed at Huang Xiong. Huang Xiong could not dodge in time. A corner of his clothes was cut off. In a split second, the audience in the martial arts arena cried out in alarm. From this moment on, everyone discovered that Hien's movements began to become faster. Her footwork was extremely nimble. One saber went to entangle Huang Xiong's golden broadsword. The other saber was like a snake waiting for an opportunity to strike. Although Huang Xiong was not stabbed by her, he could no longer gain an advantage. The single saber was fierce, the double sabers were nimble. Using softness to overcome hardness, the weak to overcome the strong. You just asked me to teach you. I just remembered that our double sabers have a song formula. Unexpectedly, she still had time to talk. I'll read it to you. Huang Xiong stared blankly. She took advantage of the opportunity to throw her sharp saber at him again. The north wind in June gives birth to two arms, using both left and right as one. She held a long saber in each hand. Her posture was elegant. Two arms intertwined before my eyes. Later than Yu Yang obtaining the lone sword. The long sabers danced, making it difficult for people to see the youth's expression. They could only hear his laughter. Using one hand alone, swift as lightning. Only the position of the clapper has been learned. She pressed forward step by step, but did not panic. Only knowing that the former saber is not enough, using both left and right is trivial. The saber swept toward Huang Xiong's neck. Huang Xiong narrowly avoided it. Using the sword today, using the right saber. Obtaining the position of the clapper, using the left. One left, one right. She used them skillfully and freely. He only felt that the saber was her hand. Her hand was like the blade. On the martial arts arena, she was chanting and dancing, corresponding to her neither fast nor slow voice. Her movements were as fast as lightning. The clashing of sabers and sabers made a clanging sound. It made people's hearts clench. When Cheng Lisu and the others came over, they saw this scene. "Uncle, look, I told you my big brother will win," he shouted excitedly. His shout attracted the attention of the people around him. Someone recognized Xiao Ju and immediately shouted excitedly. "It's Commander-in-Chief, Military Governor Xiao. General Feng Yin has come to the martial arts arena." General Feng Yin? With that said, the recruits' eyes were instantly attracted to Xiao Ju. The noise spread to the martial arts arena. Hien's ears twitched. "Xiao Ju." She turned her head to look. Sure enough, not far from the martial arts arena, standing next to Shun Han and Cheng Lisu, was Xiao Ju. The youth was wearing a dark blue robe embroidered with red crown cranes. He had a graceful bearing and a picturesque face. He did not look like a picture scroll with the recruits who filled the martial arts arena. This side was rough and deep, while his side was bright and clear. Hien could not see his expression clearly because they were too far apart. Presumably, he also had an indifferent and aloof appearance. She did not expect that Xiao Ju would personally come to watch her compete. Did this mean that her performance yesterday had finally reached the ears of the people who should have heard of it? Did Xiao Ju notice that she was such an outstanding talent? "Big brother, be careful." While she was thinking, She heard Chung Lisu's exclamation. She looked up and saw that the golden saber was already in front of her. Chapter 61. The sharp edge of the blade was right in front of his eyes, and there seemed to be a faint smell of blood. This scene fell into the eyes of the audience, and they all burst into exclamations. Liang Ping couldn't help but blurt out, "Be careful." Saber techniques were different from spear techniques. Spear techniques were more dangerous than crossbow techniques, and saber techniques were more dangerous than spear techniques. If he wasn't careful, he would bleed. Moreover, Huang Xiong was too strong. If he couldn't hold back his saber, he would be in trouble. This kid was usually careless, but how could he be distracted at a time like this? Liang Ping was anxious. Being distracted during a saber competition was a big taboo. Huang Xiong saw this opportunity and immediately slashed at He Yin. Seeing that he couldn't dodge and the saber was about to reach his neck, the youth suddenly raised his head and revealed a sly smile. "Oh no," Huang Xiong thought to himself. Just as he was about to withdraw his saber, He Yin's saber in his left hand had already reached his long saber, and the saber in his right hand had already circled behind him. In a panic, Huang Xiong bent his body to avoid, but he saw the youth's smile widen. When he withdrew his hands, both sabers were in his hands. The Mandarin duck double saber slashed at Huang Xiong's head. Huang Xiong wanted to reach out to block, but it was too late. The blade stopped in front of his forehead, but because of the sharp edge, a small wound appeared on his forehead, and a trace of blood flowed out. The audience was silent. After a while, He Yin withdrew his saber from his side, took out a wrinkled handkerchief, and handed it to him. "Thank you for letting me win." Huang Xiong looked at He Yin's handkerchief, but didn't take it. Instead, he asked, "Just now you weren't distracted. Was that a trick?" "All's fair in war." He Yin smiled. "What do you think?" She had been doing things for so many years, so of course she knew that she couldn't let her guard down at any time. She had to be even more focused during competition. Just now, even if the emperor came, she wouldn't have been shaken, let alone Xiao Ju. However, Huang Xiong's swordsmanship was exquisite. She wasn't good at using swords. If she didn't use some tricks, how could she win so easily? It was just a deliberate distraction to lure Huang Xiong into the trap, but it turned out to be the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Speaking of which, she was quite smart. Xiao Ju probably wouldn't have thought that the person he called stupid back then had already learned how to use his wits and wit. Thinking of this, He Yin proudly looked down the stage, wanting to see if Xiao Ju was looking at him with adoration. However, when she looked around, Xiao Ju was nowhere to be seen. Even Shun Han was nowhere to be seen. Only Chung Lisu was waving at her excitedly, waving his hairband. He left just like that. He Yin stared blankly. Then did he see her charm or not? Before she could figure out, a large group of people surrounded her with a whoosh sound. She had been in the limelight again today. Half of the Liang Province Guard's recruits were completely convinced by her. Her bow, spear, and swordsmanship were all so exquisite. She was like a crane in a flock of chickens. However, half of the people couldn't stand her arrogance. They only said, "Only using schemes and tricks isn't the right way. If you have the ability, fight fair and square. It's because you know you can't beat your opponent that you have to resort to trickery. That only shows that she's smart." Someone retorted. Wang Ba mixed in with the recruits and walked out. His heart was filled with complicated feelings. On one hand, he hoped that He Yin would keep winning. This would show that He Yin was a true powerhouse. It was understandable that he lost to a powerhouse. After all, no one in the Liang Province Guards could beat him. However, on the other hand, Wang Ba wasn't satisfied. Why did so many people lose to He Yin? Why did he have to call He Yin boss? Why? However, when he thought about it, Huang Xiong was already in his 40s. Losing to a 16-year-old youth seemed to be a bit worse than losing to him. When he thought of this, Wang Ba felt a bit better. He temporarily let out a breath of turbid air. In the forest at the foot of Liang Province's White Moon Mountain, two people were walking slowly. The vegetation in the forest was dense, blocking out the sunlight. It was cool and refreshing. There were also birds chirping. White Moon Mountain was the best in terms of scenery. You just watched the competition on the martial arts stage, Xiao Ju said. What do you think? Shen Han thought carefully for a moment, thought again and again, then opened his mouth to say, Liang Ping took in a good soldier. He Yin is a good seedling. To be able to reach such a level in bow, spear, and saber techniques, one must be a rare talent. It's really not easy for him to be like this. You can't find a second person like him in this batch of recruits. How's his swordsmanship? Xiao Ju asked again. From the looks of it, He Yan's swordsmanship isn't as skillful as Huang Xiong's. His advantage lies in his nimble footwork, lively mind, and flexible mind. He knows how to use tactics, Shen Han answered. He Yan's shortcomings were very obvious. If this competition had been dragged on for another 15 minutes, He Yan would have been at a disadvantage. He probably knew this himself, so he pretended to be distracted and caused Huang Xiong to impulsively attack. In the end, he defeated Huang Xiong. What do you think of him joining the Nine Flags Battalion? Xiao Ju asked carelessly. This youth is so young, but he's already scheming. He doesn't show off his bravado. He's also skilled in archery and horse riding. His martial arts are outstanding, and I heard that he can read. If we were to choose him from this batch of recruits, he would be the best choice, Shen Han said carefully. You think so too? Xiao Ju turned around. Her tone was noncommittal. Shen Han observed the young man's expression. Xiao family's young commander-in-chief had always been expressionless. At this moment, his expression was calm and nothing could be seen. However, Shen Han felt that he didn't seem to agree with his opinion. Commander-in-chief, do you think there's something wrong with him? There's something wrong with this person, Xiao Ju said. Shen Han was stunned. Today, he competed with swordsmanship. His swordsmanship wasn't considered skillful, but the footwork he used was trained by the infantry of the assault battalion. When the infantry of the assault battalion entered the battlefield, they would rush to the front at any time. Because they might die, their footwork was extremely flexible. When He Yan competed with Huang Xiong, his swordsmanship wasn't as good as Huang Xiong's, but he dodged every one of Huang Xiong's attacks. He could tell at a glance that his subconscious dodging and retreating was from the assault battalion. He Yan probably noticed it himself. He was afraid that others would find out, so he deliberately changed it. However, sometimes one wouldn't remember every subconscious move. This, Shen Han said. How is this possible? He's only 16. Has he already been on the battlefield before? It's because it's impossible that there's something wrong with him, Xiao Ju said. Now that the situation was tense, Shen Han had to be cautious. He hesitated for a moment and asked Xiao Ju, Commander-in-Chief, what should we do now? I want to test this person, Xiao Ju replied. Commander-in-Chief, how do you plan to test him? Didn't he set up an arena in the martial arts arena? 1 match a day, and he'll win every match. Tomorrow, pick 3 instructors and compete with him in riding and shooting. Shen Han was stunned. He hesitated for a moment. That's not good, right? If he wins, if He Yan won, what would the recruits think of their instructors? They couldn't even beat a soldier. Xiao Ju stopped in his tracks and said calmly, if he wins, there's definitely something wrong with him. There's no such genius in the world. Even if there was, it wouldn't appear in the Liang province guards. Chapter 62. On this day, He Yan was surrounded by the new recruits who came to befriend her until midnight. She had promised many people to teach them her swordsmanship, but she was only able to do so in the middle of the night. Because it was too late, she did not plan to go to the martial arts field to train at night. Xiao Mai lay facing her with one hand behind her head. Her eyes were bright as she said to her, Ehigu is so impressive today. Tell me. He Yan muttered to herself for a while, then said, when I was sparring with Uncle Huang today, did military governor Xiao finish watching? She was still thinking about Xiao Ju during the day. How could Xiao Ju leave without watching her exquisite swordsmanship? Wouldn't that be a waste of her efforts? Perhaps Xiao Ju thought that her swordsmanship was so ordinary that it was not worth her attention? Xiao Mai did not expect He Yan to ask about this. She tried hard to recall, then said, the governor came for a while, then left. But you were too nervous at the end of the sparring session. We were all watching you, so we didn't see when he left. You should have finished watching, right? Hien turned over worriedly. Ehigo, do you really want the governor to see it? Xiaomai asked. Of course, I want to learn martial arts and sell it to the imperial family. I have to sell it first. He didn't even watch it. How would he know that I'm the best in the Liang province guards? Hong Shan's slow voice came from the other side. Now that your reputation as the best in the Liang province guards has spread far and wide, don't worry. In a few days, there will be people looking for you to compete in this and that. There will be countless opportunities like this. Military Governor Xiao will see it one day. That's good, Hien thought to himself, then closed his eyes. Hong Shan was right. Early the next morning, right after the weight-bearing run, before he could go to the martial arts field to practice his crossbow, Liang Ping walked in front of Hien. Come here. Hien didn't know what was going on, so he followed them. When he reached the long path behind the training field, he saw two people leading 3 horses towards them. Hien also remembered their faces. They were both instructors of the Liangzhou Guards Institution. One of them was called Du Mao, and he often came to talk to Liang Ping. The other was a short, old man with grizzled hair. His name was Ma Damei. Liang Jiaodo, this is... Hien did not understand. Could it be that he wanted her to be a coach because she was very outstanding? How could a recruit be an instructor? This wasn't the way to get promoted. Besides, she didn't want to be an instructor in the Liang Province Guard. Fortunately, Liang Ping's words put her at ease. Liang Ping said, didn't you say on the martial arts platform a few days ago that you could accept any challenge from the Liang Province Guard, and that you would win every single one of them? Although Hien did not understand what he meant, he still nodded and replied, that's right. Then today, the 3 of us will compete with you in horseback archery. Du Mao stepped forward and handed the reins to Hien. Let's compete now. Hien was slightly surprised. You want to compete with me? She had set up this arena to make a name for herself among the recruits. She had never thought about becoming an instructor. What's wrong with these instructors? They're not young men. Why are they so hot-headed that they want to compete with me? Are they plotting something? Her wary gaze fell into their eyes. That thin old man with grizzled hair, Ma Damei, smiled and said, What's wrong? Young man, are you afraid to compete with us instructors? I thought you had guts. You're scared just because of this? Ma Damei's face was full of wrinkles when he smiled, but it was not ugly. Instead, it was as amiable as a family elder. However, Hien knew that this person was not as amiable as he appeared to be. From what he heard, every word and sentence was meant to provoke her. However, since she had already said so much, if she really didn't go, she would be known as a coward. Xiao Ju was someone who couldn't tolerate sand in his eyes, so he probably wouldn't let her go to the 9 Flags Battalion. Thinking of this, she laughed heartily. How could that be? I'm just afraid that I'll embarrass myself in front of you instructors, so I'm a bit hesitant. Since you instructors are willing to teach me, how could I not appreciate your kindness? Let's compete. 1 match it is. Liang Ping and the other 2 looked at each other and nodded. Okay. Hien was now a famous person in the Liang Province Guards. Whenever there was a disturbance, everyone would know about it. Once the news that the 3 instructors wanted to compete with Hien in riding and archery came out, all of the recruits immediately went crazy. They wanted to go and watch, but were stopped by their instructors and only allowed to train in the martial arts field. Naturally, this was Shan Han's arrangement. Although Xiao Ju only said that they wanted to test Hien, they could not use the reputation of all of the Liang Province Guards as a test. It was better to be safe than sorry. If Hien won, then in the future, would the recruits obey Hien or their instructors? It was hard to say. Therefore, it was better to hide. The recruits could not go and watch this show. Cheng Li Su, who was not a recruit, could not either. He was locked in a room in the Liang Province Guards. There were also guards outside, so he could not go out. He did not know that Hien was going to compete in riding and archery. When he was suddenly locked up, he thought that something had happened to the Liang Province Guards. He pounded on the door and said, What happened? Is there a riot? Why can't you let me go out? Uncle, why are you locking me up? The emotionless voice of the guard came from outside. Young master, The governor said that you have to finish copying the Zhao Ming one anthology 3 times before you can go out. I think you want me to die. Why don't you just kill me? Cheng Li Su sat down in front of the table angrily. 3 times? He would not be able to finish copying in a month. Outside, Shen Han and Xiao Ju were walking out. Shen Han looked behind him and said, Young Master Cheng seems to like He Yin a lot. If He Yin really has a problem, is it possible that he has other motives for approaching young Master Cheng? It's very possible. Xiao Ju said. Cheng Li Su was the one who told him about the 9 Flags Battalion. Shen Han was silent for a moment before saying, if that's the case, then it's really bad. There were actually people with ulterior motives among the recruits of the Liang Province Guards. He Yin was one of them, but he was definitely not the only one. If there were other people, they would be in a very passive position. What was even more frightening was that they did not know anything about this. If Xiao Ju did not happen to be here this time and saw that He Yan's movements were different, the entire Liang Province Guards would have become someone else's property. As the 2 of them spoke, they had already reached the side of the horse path in the martial arts field. He Yin and the other 3 people were standing at the end of the path, each holding a horse. First, it was Liang Ping, then Du Mao, then Ma Damei, and finally He Yin. They all mounted their horses. He Yin stood at the furthest side, and her horse was also the smallest. Probably to take care of her figure, she flipped onto the horse. Her movements were skillful. She held the reins in one hand and carried a quiver and longbow on her back. Her majestic appearance did not seem like the weak young man that they usually saw. He Yin did not even have a riding suit. The sunlight shone on his red clothes, gilding his delicate features with a layer of special heroic spirit. He Yin had a smile on his lips. His appearance of a golden saber and armored horse actually resembled the stunning charm of a young general. Shen Han stole a glance at Xiao Ju beside him. The latter's expression was lazy and indifferent. He did not know what she was thinking, but Shen Han knew that for a moment, He Yin was actually a little similar to him. Chapter 63. Liang Jiaodo, you still haven't told me. How do we compete in horseback archery? He Yin looked at Liang Ping, who was beside him. Do we compete in who has more game, or who can reach the end of the track first? Before Liang Ping could speak, Ma Damei spoke first. He smiled and said, Young man, in the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, we will run a lap around here. This is the starting point and also the end. There's a grass target at the bend of the track ahead. The 4 of us have different feather arrows, so we will shoot at the bend. Whoever finishes shooting and returns to this point first will win. He Yin listened and nodded. Okay. Liang Ping couldn't help but look at him. The sentence this young man said the most was okay. Whether it was to Wang Ba, Jiang Jiao, or Huang Xiong, or now to these instructors, he still said okay. They didn't know when he would say no. Then let's start. Du Mao pulled the reins. Someone behind him blew a horn. The 4 horses were like arrows leaving the bowstring. In the blink of an eye, they were more than 10 meters away, leaving only billowing smoke behind. He Yin's horse was much more obedient than the one she had at the capital's drill ground. He Sui must have been specially trained by someone. She only needed to give a few instructions, and the horse would understand. She also noticed that among the other 3 instructors, although Liang Ping and Du Mao's equestrian skills were good, they were not as good as the ordinary-looking Ma Damei. Ma Damei's equestrian skills were on par with hers. Perhaps she was better, but she didn't show it. She observed the 3 instructors, and the others were also observing her. Du Mao glanced over, and his eyes almost popped out. He Yin didn't use a horsewhip. She wrapped the horsewhip around her arm and commanded the horse to gallop. However, she used her hand to gently pat the horse's body. This wasn't the capital's young master going on a scenic tour. What was he doing? The most surprising thing was that he was so casual that he didn't fall behind the instructors. He was running neck and neck with Du Mao. He even had the mood to smile at Du Mao. Du Mao immediately turned his head away. The steed galloped like a shooting star and arrived at the bend in the blink of an eye. He Yin reached for the quiver on his back, took out several arrows, and was about to shoot at the grass targets on both sides. This target was not as big as the one at the training field. It was only the size of a palm, and was not obvious. If one used a crossbow, it would not be easy to hit it. It also depended on the person's eyesight and movements. Just as Yin was about to shoot, Liang Ping and Du Mao looked at each other. One in front, the other behind, they suddenly exerted their strength. The two horses squeezed toward Yan's side, pushing Yan's horse to one side, so that the arrow in his hand could not be shot. Yan was jolted a few times by the frightened horse, and hastily pulled on the reins to steady himself. She looked at Liang Ping and Du Mao. The two of them were shooting arrows as if nothing had happened. Du Mao even said to her, "Yan, you have to be careful. Don't fall." It was as if they weren't the ones who had just touched her. Yan raised his eyebrows. Really, on the competition field, she never understood the word forgive. They disturb her archery. How could she just let it go like that? Liang Ping and Du Mao had already shot their arrows, but they saw a green arrow shoot out from the side. With a dong sound, the arrow was cut in half. The arrow changed direction and fell to the ground. The two of them looked at Yin at the same time. Yin shrugged and said, "Instructor, why do you look like you're not very skilled?" Liang Ping. This young man was too vengeful. His mouth was also unforgiving. He was really arrogant. Yin was about to shoot again, but before she could pull out the arrow, her body jolted again. The old man, Ma Damei, had already caught up from behind. He smiled at Yin and said, "Young man, don't be anxious. Take your time." Yin couldn't draw the bow. As soon as she moved, the three of them would follow from behind, from the front, from the left and right, and touch her as if nothing had happened. The horses were frequently frightened, so she couldn't aim at the bull's eye. After a few times, Yin could see that the three instructors were deliberately opposing her. Although she didn't understand why, it was probably part of the competition. If they wanted her to be unable to shoot, even if she returned to the end of the track first, it wouldn't be considered a victory. She was outnumbered. Moreover, this was a competition of archery. She couldn't fight with these instructors. However, Yin couldn't just let it go like this. Yan's eyes moved slightly. She muttered, "Want to scheme against me? No way." She suddenly raised her arm. The horsewhip wrapped around her arm, uncoiled, and fell in the wind, making a crisp sound. Du Mao frowned. From the beginning to the end, Yin hadn't used the horsewhip. It was rare to see someone who could skillfully ride a horse without a horsewhip. But now that Yin was doing this, could it be that she couldn't handle it and had to use the horsewhip again? Yin was thinking when suddenly, she raised her head and smiled at him. Du Mao had a bad premonition. The next moment, he saw the horsewhip flying towards him. Du Mao was shocked and instinctively dodged. Yin actually dared to hurt people. When he moved sideways, the quiver behind him was exposed in front of everyone. The horsewhip didn't fall on Du Mao's body. Instead, it wrapped around the arrows in the quiver. Yin stretched out her hand and pulled. The horsewhip loosened in midair, and the arrows fell into the wind. Liang Ping, who witnessed the whole process, was stunned. Before he could react, Yan's horsewhip was aimed at him. He was shocked and hurriedly urged his horse to dodge. But this time, it was Yan's turn to attack. How could he escape? With a pull and a hook, all the arrows in his quiver were thrown to the ground. Yan. Du Mao's face was livid. "I think the instructors don't want me to shoot." Yan didn't seem to see his ugly face. She smiled and said, "But I don't want to lose. There's no other way. Let's stop shooting. Whoever runs faster wins, right?" "Ha ha!" Ma Damei's laughter came from behind. He didn't have a trace of nervousness or anger. Instead, he was full of interest. "You're quite smart. I wonder if you'll take my arrows?" Yan smiled. "How can I? I don't intend to take your arrows." Ma Damei's equestrian skills were excellent. It was difficult for her to touch his arrows, but it didn't matter. As long as there was no target to shoot at, he could only compete with her to reach the finish line first. She and Ma Damei went side by side. When she shot an arrow, Ma Damei shot an arrow to block. When Ma Damei shot an arrow, Yan shot an arrow to block. The two of them had left Liang Ping and Du Mao behind. No one was faster than the other. Thus, in a stalemate, they passed the last bend. No one hit the target. Now, they could only compete to reach the finish line first. Ma Damei looked at Yan and smiled. Young man, you're really good. He waved his horsewhip. Suddenly, the horse rushed forward. Just now, he didn't use all his skills. Ian looked at his back and praised. There's really someone better than you. He squeezed the horse's belly and followed. Chapter 64. The horse was agile. Its hooves stirred up the wind, and as fast as lightning, it galloped straight to the finish line. Ian and Ma Damii were neck and neck. If this continued, it would be hard to tell who would reach the finish line first. Liang Ping and Du Mao had already given up. They knew that their equestrian skills were not as good as the two in front of them, and they could not catch up. They simply strolled slowly behind them. Anyway, they had already done what Chief Instructor Shun asked them to do. Chief Instructor Shun called them out last night and asked them to compete with He Yin in equestrian archery today. At first, Liang Ping and Du Mao both refused. They were not recruits, so why should they compete with He Yin? But Chief Instructor insisted that they do this. He also asked them to create trouble for He Yin as much as possible during the equestrian archery journey, and not let He Yin win. Liang Ping felt very uncomfortable. They wanted to compete with He Yin, but they could not let He Yin win. Wasn't this deliberately unfair? Comparing their instructor and the recruits was already bullying, and the three of them teamed up to deal with He Yin. It was simply the worst kind of bullying. Who knew that man proposes, God disposes? Not to mention the three of them, he and Du Mao did not bully He Yin. Instead, they were bullied by He Yin. Fortunately, the recruits did not see it. If they saw it, where they put their old faces. But among the three of them, Ma Damii was an expert in equestrian skills. How would He Yin compare with her? From afar, they could see the red silk cloth on the flagpole at the finish line. He Yin pulled the reins, and the horse moved forward half a step ahead of Ma Damii. She wanted to rush to the finish line, but at this time, Ma Damii shouted, "Little guy." He Yin subconsciously looked at him. She saw the little old man standing upright with his 2 feet on the horse's back. He was very stable. She praised him in her heart. Then, the old man smiled at her, turned his body, and swept toward He Yin. He Yin was startled. He urged his horse to evade, but the old man was like a bat with wings. Half of his body was already hanging on He Yin's horse. He even pursed his lips and reprimanded He Yin for urging the horse to avoid him. "Young man, how can you be so unkind at such a young age? Do you want me to fall to my death?" He Yin wanted to push He Yin down, but this man had already taken over the magpie's nest, holding the reins firmly in his hand. He struck his palm toward He Yin, intending to knock him down. This person was really full of confidence in her. Wasn't he afraid that something would happen to her if she fell? He Yin cursed in his heart. He exchanged 2 more moves with him, but neither of them was able to gain an advantage. Ma Damii was also surprised. The dozens of instructors of the Liang State Guard all had their own strengths. Some of them were proficient in bows and crossbows, while others were proficient in foot encirclement. However, he was most proficient in horseback archery. Yesterday, Shenhan had asked him to compete with He Yin today. At first, he thought Shenhan was crazy, but now, it seemed that this young man named He Yin had greatly exceeded his expectations. His riding skills were exquisite, and his mind was nimble and decisive. He knew that it would be difficult for the three of them to hit the grass target, so he simply knocked away all of the other people's arrows. At this moment, the 2 moves he exchanged with him were not chaotic at all. It was as if he often exchanged blows with others in critical situations. He was very calm. He Yin, on the other hand, was not as calm as he appeared. The instructors of the Liang State Guard weren't people who only knew how to eat and not do anything. This old man was truly difficult to deal with. Seeing that the finish line was too close, her goal was not to exchange blows with him, but to cross the finish line first. If this continued, even if the horse reached the finish line, with both her and the old man on the horse, who would win? How treacherous! When she raised her head, her face was also full of smiles, without a trace of displeasure. "Although I am young, I know how to respect my elders. You're already so old, yet you're still riding with me. If you fall, even 10,000 deaths would not be enough to absolve me of the blame. I'd better switch horses." As she spoke, She leaned forward and grabbed the iron ring on the horse's saddle with both hands. She leaned against the horse and let go. This move was truly beautiful. Ma Damiai's eyes couldn't help but light up. Hien grabbed the iron ring with one hand and used the whip in his other hand to wrap around Ma Damiai's empty horse not far away. When the two horses drew closer, Hien let go and half of his body jumped onto the other horse. He grabbed the reins and flipped himself onto the horse again. Good, good, good. Ma Damiai said good 3 times in a row. She looked at Hien with undisguised admiration. However, he smiled and said, "But if you think you can win like this, you're still too inexperienced." Before she finished speaking, the horse under Hien's body violently struggled and refused to move forward. Instead, it stood on the spot as if it had gone mad. "This is my own horse. It recognizes its master. Young man, your horsemanship is not bad. But if the horse recognizes its master, you won't be able to control it." He laughed loudly, as if Hien's move was exactly what he wanted. He was just waiting to see Hien make a scene. The young man smiled slightly. His voice was not nervous at all. He calmly replied, "I'll still try. What if I can control it again?" After she finished speaking, she leaned over and put her lips close to the horse's ear. She didn't know what she was whispering, but the horse under her gradually calmed down after she tossed and turned. Ma Damiai was stunned. He couldn't believe his eyes. He had seen thousands of horses. He also had simple communication with horses. However, he had never seen a horse that recognized its master obediently listen to just a few words. There were myths and legends in ancient times. There were people who understood the language of hundreds of animals. Was he one? He had lived for so long, but he had never believed in myths and legends. The young man pulled on the reins, and the horse galloped away. Ma Damiai hurriedly followed. However, he had already missed the best opportunity while he was in a daze. The young man's words were still ringing in his ears. He had a smug expression on his face. "Instructor, your chance to beat me ends here." At the end of the horse path, Shun Han and Xiao Ju sat in a pavilion in the forest. Shun Han didn't touch the tea in his teacup at all. Xiao Ju, on the other hand, drank half a cup. He had a panoramic view of Hien's fight with Ma Damiai just now. Shun Han closed his eyes. A chill rose in his heart. Xiao Ju was right. It was impossible for such a genius to appear in the Liang province guards. She was first in every event and had surpassed all of his instructors. This wasn't a good thing. It was too strange. It was as if it was specially prepared for the Liang province guards. The red silk fluttered in the wind. The young man and his horse were like a gust of wind as they swept across the finish line. He reined in the horse and shouted for it to stop. Smoke and dust rose. Behind him was Ma Damiai. She had a serious expression and didn't look relaxed. The two of them stopped one after the other. Hien got off his horse first. After he got off, Ma Damiai also got off her horse. She walked towards Ma Damiai and stopped in front of her. "I didn't mean to tease you just now. I was forced by the situation. You won't hold it against me, right?" The young man looked anxious. Ma Damiai was stunned for a moment. Then she smiled. "Young man, what are you talking about? It's a competition." A big smile appeared on the young man's face. She wiped the sweat on her forehead and thought for a moment. Then she said, "Then this time, thanks for letting me win. Thanks for letting me win." In other words, she won again. Chapter 65. Liang Ping and Du Mao, who were behind him, finally rushed back. The two of them got off their horses at the finish line and saw Hien happily drinking water while Ma Damiai stood to the side, deep in thought. It didn't look like Ma Damiai had won. The two of them thought at the same time, it can't be, right? Even Ma Damiai couldn't beat Hien. Liang Ping walked to Ma Damiai's side. Ma Damiai didn't wait for him to speak and said, "I lost." She really lost? Liang Ping was surprised. How can that be? How could you lose to him? Ma Damiai was the best equestrian archer among their instructors. If Ma Damiai couldn't beat Hien, then didn't that mean that no one in the entire Liangzhou guard was better than Hien in equestrian skills? Then why would Hien come to learn equestrian archery? He could be his own instructor. Did that brat trick you? Du Mao asked in a low voice. Did you fall for his trick? Ian had just used his whip to deflect all of his arrows. Du Mao was angry just thinking about it. Look, was this really something a new recruit could do? Ma Damii glared at him. I'm not as good as him, okay? She walked to Hian's side and asked Hian, Little girl, I have something to ask you. Instructor, do you want to ask me what I said to your horse at the end so that it stopped going crazy and listened to me? Hian tightened his water bag. If you want to ask about this, then forget it. It's an ancestral skill. I can't tell anyone. She winked at Ma Damii, then turned to Liang Ping and said, Liang Jiaodo, if there's nothing else, I'll leave first. I still have to go to the practice field to train. Liang Ping waved his hand. Forget it, out of sight, out of mind. Du Mao looked at her back and felt that it was strange. She's still quite energetic after this run. She actually still has the strength to go to the practice field to train. What kind of person is she? He's different from you and me, Liang Ping answered grumpily. I've made a fool of myself in front of you. Shen Han was a little embarrassed. All of his instructors had been defeated by Hian, and this was under the condition that he had used some tricks. If the three of them couldn't defeat him even after joining forces, it would be somewhat inexcusable. It's nothing. You did well. Xiao Ju lowered her eyes and sipped her tea. We didn't ask you to compete in equestrian archery. We just wanted to test the candidates. Now, the candidates have been tested. Does the commander-in-chief still think that there's something wrong with him? Shen Han asked. Yes. Because Hian is too outstanding? If it was because of this, it could only be regarded as suspicion. There was no evidence. Xiao Ju put down the teacup in her hand. The way he rode the horse at the end is from the barbarian tribe. Barbarian tribe? Shen Han suddenly stood up. The barbarians included the Western Chong, the Southern barbarians, and the current Wutuo kingdom. When the Western Chong rebellion was quelled by General Fei Hong, Xiao Ju personally expelled the Southern barbarian tribe when they invaded. Now, Yudo was ready to make a move. The barbarian tribe and Dawei had always been like fire and water. Even the Western Chong and Southern barbarian tribe had a subtle relationship. Could she be a barbarian? Not necessarily. Xiao Ju shook her head. Did you bring the military registry? Shen Han presented the registry. Hian's is here. Since this person is different, we can't act rashly and alert him. Pay attention to his every move and be careful. Commander-in-Chief, are you thinking of casting a long line to catch a big fish? We have to catch the person behind it, he replied calmly. After Shen Han left, Xiao Ju flipped through the registry in her hand. Her gaze lingered on Hian's page for a long time. After a while, she said, Fei knew someone quietly appeared behind her like a shadow and said in a low voice, Young master. Send someone to check if there is a son called Hian in the He family of the capital's gate guard. Fei Nu accepted the order and was about to leave when Xiao Ju called him again. Check again. See if the He family and Su Jingfu have any secret dealings. When Hian returned to the martial arts practice field, a large group of people who had been waiting anxiously surrounded him. How was it? How was it? What was the result? Why don't I see instructor and the others? Did you win or did instructor win? Hian smiled and said, It's a secret. This answer obviously did not satisfy everyone's curiosity. However, Hian's lips were sealed tightly and no one could pry open his mouth. Everyone left resentfully and speculated among themselves. He should have one, right? Hian doesn't look like he lost. This was someone who believed in her. Since he won, why didn't he say it openly? If he didn't say it, he must have lost and was afraid of losing face. This was someone who did not believe in her. You won't get a result, even if you argue. If Hian doesn't want to say it, you can ask the instructor. This was someone who thought it through calmly. Therefore, when the instructors arrived, everyone swarmed towards the instructors like a swarm of bees. The instructors were confused at first, but when they heard that they were being asked about the results of the competition, they all looked towards Hian at the same time. They thought that this kid was kind and knew to leave some face for the instructor and did not expose him. The instructor waved their hands and said, Don't ask anymore. Disperse. In the end, they did not say anything. When Hian went to bed that night, Xiao Mai was still thinking about the result. She asked Hian, Ehigu, so what was the result? The result is not important. Hian patted Xiao Mai's head and said, The important thing is that I'm going to bed now. She turned over to face the wall and pointed the back of her head at Xiao Mai. Xiao Mai could not get an answer from her and could only give up. He Yin could not sleep. He kept thinking about what happened on the horse path during the day. No matter what, it was too strange for three instructor to suddenly challenge her to a riding and archery competition. The three of them teamed up to fight her. If she was a normal recruit, she would not be able to handle it. But they did not seem to consider whether she could withstand this kind of competition. It was not like a challenge, but more like a test or to prove something. In the end, she subdued Ma Damiai's horse. She used a horse taming technique that she learned from a barbarian captive when she was in the army. That captive was a horse trainer. His horse taming technique was superb and made them suffer a lot. After He Yin captured him, the captive was afraid of death. He wrote down his tribe's precious horse taming technique and gave it to He Yin. But that horse taming technique was too complicated. He Yin only learned a little. Even so, it was enough to stop a normal horse. If she did not do that today, she would not have won against Ma Damiai. But if it was really a test, the only person who could command the Liang Province Guards Institute's instructor was either the head instructor or Xiao Ju. If it was Xiao Ju, what was his purpose? Could it be that he wanted to pick someone to go to the 9 Flags Battalion? So he hurriedly ordered the instructor to test her qualifications and skills? Was that so? He Yin faintly felt that she might have thought wrongly, but she could not find any other way to think about it. After thinking for a while, she decided not to think about it anymore. Since she was already here, she might as well take things as they came. After all, she did not lose this round. Chapter 66. He Yin originally thought that if it was Xiao Ju who asked Ma Damiai and the others to compete in equestrian archery with him, then after the competition, they would be able to see that his skills were out of the ordinary and would do something about it. But after more than 10 days had passed, the days were still as usual. Other than the occasional recruits who came to compete with her, nothing else happened. She didn't even get an extra cup of military rations. Maybe it was just a coincidence. He Yin thought that maybe the instructors were bored in the Liang Province Guard and wanted to test their skills. She put this matter to the back of her mind for the time being. After a few rains, the summer heat seemed to have lessened a bit. Occasionally, when she woke up in the morning for a jog, there was no sun and a cool breeze. Before long, the summer of the Liang Province Guard would be over. It was also because the weather was gradually cooling that the recruits were allowed to enter the mountain a few days ago. Mount Baiwe was extremely large. It would take at least a day and a night to climb the mountain. Because of this, the recruits were strictly forbidden from climbing the mountain. At most, they could only go to the top. Every day, 5 people would go up the mountain to patrol. Hong Shan didn't understand. What are 5 people patrolling for? If there really is any danger, will 5 people be enough? He Yin thought, of course it won't be enough. You weren't supposed to be patrolling in the first place. The new recruits of the Liangzhou Guard have been training here for an entire summer. Before long, it would be time for the battle for the flag. The flag battle was to plant more than 10 flags at the top of the mountain. The recruits with better aptitudes and outstanding results would be divided into teams, and they would go up the mountain to compete. There would be fights between the teams competing. When they finally went down the mountain, the team with the most flags would be the winner. The final winner would become the most promising recruit and would most likely enter the Vanguard Battalion. He Yin's goal was no longer the Vanguard Battalion, but 9 Flags Battalion. Now, he had the recruits walk around the mountain every day to familiarize them with the terrain of Mount Baiwe. He wanted them to remember the location so that they wouldn't be unfamiliar with the way during the flag battle. However, the recruits didn't know. As someone who had been in the military, He Yin knew. The last time she fought for the flag in Mo County was connected to the desert. When the wind blew in the desert, the landmarks disappeared and the sand dunes changed. When they were fighting for the flag, the situation was very dangerous. If it wasn't for a big brother in the team who found a small river, perhaps no one would have been able to walk out of the desert. Battle for the flag not only tested a recruit's individual skills, but also the team's teamwork. It wasn't enough to just focus on one aspect. The test for everyone was very high. Although the so-called battle for the flag was in the future, from a certain perspective, the competition had already begun. Smart people would be able to remember the way while patrolling, but those new recruits who did not have any awareness would just take it as a random walk and would not take it to heart. It would not be of any help in the future battle for the flag. Who cares? Ahigu, today it's your turn to go up the mountain. Can you take a bow, an arrow, and hunt a few rabbits? We'll come back secretly and roast them. I haven't tasted meat for half a month. Shaom, I licked her lips. I won't take a crossbow. Hien smiled. A crossbow is too heavy. I'll take a knife. Most importantly, a crossbow was not suitable for close combat. If there was a problem, it wouldn't be very useful. Moreover, in a team, there would always be someone who carried a crossbow. When the time came, they could just borrow it. Seeing Xiao Mai's regretful expression, she comforted him. It's okay. In a few days, we can go up the mountain together. At that time, we can hunt as many rabbits as we want. Xiao Mai was skeptical. Hien couldn't tell him that during the flag battle, everyone would be on the mountain. The instructor wouldn't be there either. They might even have to spend the night on the mountain. Naturally, he could eat whatever he wanted. She tied the belt on her clothes tightly. Then she heard Hong Shan say, "Then go down a mountain early. Let's celebrate the festival together tonight." What festival? Hien was confused. Xiao Mai said, Qixi Festival. He almost forgot that today was the 7th day of the 7th month, Daughter's Day. However, why would a group of men celebrate Qixi Festival? Hien found it funny. Shouldn't we celebrate it with the girls we like? Do you guys like any girls? Hong Shan immediately said, "Don't look down on others. There are many girls who like your brother Shan. If brother Shan wants to celebrate Qixi Festival, the girls will definitely be happy." I don't. Xiao Mai quickly said, "But my brother does. My brother likes Sister Xiaolan, who works at Uncle Sun's noodle shop in the east of the city." Sure too. Hien looked at Sure too. Sure too's ears were red. Xiao Mai asked again, "Ehigu, do you have any girls you like? What kind of girls do you like?" Hien casually made up a story. Good-looking, smart, good fighting skills, and rich. Oh right, gentle, considerate, lively, and interesting. It's best if she has some skills in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. It'd be best if she knows how to cook. After Hien left, Xiao Mai was still thinking about Hien's words. She muttered, "Ahiji's requirements for his sweetheart are really high. Don't listen to his nonsense." Hong Shan nodded. "He wants to marry a princess. Xiao Mai, don't learn from him." Xiao Mai nodded seriously. Hien went to the weapon rack in the martial arts arena and took a Mandarin duck sword. Ever since she defeated Huang Xiong's golden broadsword with the Mandarin duck sword, there were people practicing with the Mandarin duck sword every day. However, they were not as agile as Hien when it came to practicing the Mandarin duck sword. After practicing a few times, they felt that it was not suitable for them and gave up. In the end, Hien was the only one who used the Mandarin duck sword in the martial arts arena. Today, when she went up the mountain, the Mandarin duck sword was light and easy to use. If she wanted to start a fire and roast 2 fish, the Mandarin duck sword would be easy to kill. She took the Mandarin duck sword and walked to the end of the horse path. The other 4 people were already ready. Hien did not know these 4 people. They were not Liang Jiaodo's subordinates. When they saw Hien, one of them smiled and pointed to Hien. "Go and pick a horse. We're leaving now." Hien nodded. She went to the stable and picked a horse. The 5 of them went up Mount Baiwe. The mountain was covered with dense forests. It was much cooler and more comfortable to walk than at the foot of the mountain. From time to time, there were wild rabbits jumping by. Someone asked, "Why don't we hunt a few rabbits?" Okay. The recruit who greeted Hien immediately agreed. "Who brought a crossbow?" Everyone looked at each other. Probably because the crossbow was too heavy and they had to stay on a mountain for more than half a day, no one wanted to bring it. So no one brought it. Well, no one brought it. A recruit with slanted eyes shrugged. His tone was not very good, but his eyes were looking at Hien. Then we can only watch. Everyone knew that Hien's archery skills were outstanding. They probably thought that Hien would bring it. Hien looked back indifferently with a calm expression. "You asked General Fei Hong to hunt rabbits for you. Did you bring your brain? You're really shameless, she thought. Chapter 67. Rabbits were not to be hunted. Foxes were also not to be hunted, and birds were still not to be hunted. Since they could not hunt anything, they could only obediently patrol the mountain. The mountain paths of Mount Bywell were rugged, but the scenery was excellent. White mist rose from the mountain stream, and as far as the eye could see, it was surrounded by an emerald color. Spring light and clouds curled around the robes, and the peaks rose up majestically. It was like a fairyland. Slanted Eyes was very smart. He carried a few pieces of yellow paper with him, and when he reached a place, he used charcoal to draw a few steps on the yellow paper. He was memorizing the path. Every once in a while, everyone would make a mark on the tree to prevent them from getting lost and not knowing how to get back down a mountain. Because no one brought a bow, the journey was very quiet. They set off early in the morning and finally climbed to the top by noon. Everyone tied their horses to the trees and rested for a while beside a small stream. After eating their dry rations and recovering their strength, they could go down the mountain and return to the garrison before sunset. The recruit who greeted Hien was not very physically strong. When he reached the top, he was so tired that he collapsed on the ground. He impatiently took out some dry rations to fill his stomach and muttered, "We've finally reached the top. I can't walk anymore." Hien washed his hand by the stream and sat down under the sure tube beside him. He also took out some dry rations. The dry rations were the dry biscuits given out in the morning. They were dry and hard. The recruit came over and took out a small handful of pine nuts from his pocket. He handed it to Hien and said, "Here." Hien was surprised. "Where did you get these?" "My mother packed them for me before we came to the Liangzhou garrison. She couldn't bear to eat them all in one go, so she saved them." He was reluctant to part with them, but still pretended to be generous. "Try it." Hien picked up one from his palm, peeled it, and threw it into his mouth. "It's very fragrant." Right. The child was somewhat happy. "My name is Shen Hong. I know you." "Hien, you were very powerful at the training field. No one could beat you. I was just lucky." Hien smiled. Shen Hong looked into the distance and said regretfully, "It's a pity that I didn't bring my crossbow. I didn't know that you were going with us. If I had known, I would have definitely brought one. Your archery skills are so good. Just use the crossbow to shoot a few rabbits, and we can eat roasted rabbits." Could it be that he and Mai were biological brothers from different mothers? Hien thought about it and asked casually, "What weapon did you bring?" Shen Hong scratched the back of her head in embarrassment. "Me? I'm not good at archery, so it's useless to bring a crossbow. My swordsmanship is average, and my spear skills are also. I reckon that I won't be of much use. So I took a..." He took out a long staff from behind his back. And this. Hien was speechless. He actually brought a staff, and it was not an iron staff, but a long staff made from bamboo. Was there such a weapon on the weapon rack in a martial arts practice field? Hien doubted that Shen Hong's staff was indeed useless. Oh, unless there was a jujube tree here. He could use this long staff to hit the jujubes. As if seeing Hien's speechlessness, Shen Hong quickly tried to remedy the situation. "Anyway, we won't fight." Hien nodded. "You're right." She and Shen Hong sat on one side, while Slanted Eye and the other two sat on the other side a little further away from them. After eating, Hien leaned against a tree and rested for a while. Shen Hong carefully asked him, "Hien, can I borrow your knife?" "What's wrong? Do you see that?" Shen Hong pointed to a green patch by the stream. The leaves were long and thin, and it was impossible to tell what kind of grass it was. He said, "My family runs a pharmacy. This is called book belt grass. It's shaped like rhombus, but it's not rhombus. It can be eye-catching and soothe the nerves. I want to pick some back. We've been here all day, so it might be useful. But the book belt grass is very tough, so it's not easy to pick. The weapons they're carrying are either long knives or spears. They're not as good as your small knife." She was using her knife as a sickle. "Hien." "Okay." She took out the mandarin duck knife from her waist and handed it to Shen Hong. "Be careful." Shen Hong put down the staff in her hand and happily took the knife. She said to Hien, "Thank you. I'll cut some more. When I'm done, I'll give you another one." Hien wanted to say that there was no need, but then he thought that perhaps Hong Shan could use it. Hong Shan said that he had been too hot recently and couldn't sleep well. Moreover, it was Shun Hong's kind intention, so he swallowed the words back into his stomach. She leaned against the tree and watched Shun Hong busying herself. As she watched, she suddenly heard movement behind her. She looked again and saw Slanted Eye and the other two people untying the horse ropes on the tree. Ian was stunned and asked, "Are we leaving already? Aren't you going to rest for a while?" In total, they had been here for less than an hour. It was still early, so there was more than enough time to go down the mountain. Slanted Eye didn't seem to like Yin and was impatient when talking to her. "We're not going down the mountain. Let's go to the front first." Yin looked ahead. They were already at the top of the mountain. If they wanted to go to the front, they would have to climb over the mountain. She frowned. "The instructor said that we can't climb over the mountain. It's just 2 more steps." "We won't climb over," Slanted Eye said. "We didn't ask you to come with us. You just wait here. We'll be back soon." "I think," Yin stood up, "it's better to listen to the instructor. There might be some danger." "Zhang Xian, are you going or not?" The other person had already untied the horse rope and got on the horse. Slanted Eye, Zhang Xian, looked at Yin and said, "If you're afraid of danger, then don't go. Besides, only you and I know. As long as you don't say anything, who will know? Don't worry for nothing. Go play with that fool cutting grass. We'll go first." After saying that, he didn't care about Yin and got on the horse himself. Together with the other two people, they went into the depths of the forest. Yin wanted to chase after them, but he couldn't leave Shun Hong alone. While he was thinking, the 3 people had already gone far away. She sighed and sat down under the tree again. Forget it. They didn't find anything wrong on the way up the mountain. There weren't many people in the mountain, and there weren't any big beasts. At most, there were a few badgers and wildcats. When they saw people, they would run away. After a while, Shun Hong came back from the stream. He was carrying a bundle of grass in each hand. The grass was really shaped like a book belt. It was long and soft. When he smelled it, he could smell its fragrance. Shun Hong found the longest straw and tied the 2 big bundles of book belt. He handed one bundle to Yin. "This is it. Go back and dry it in the sun. Find a cloth bag and put it under your pillow. I guarantee you'll have a good sleep." Yin said, "Thank you. No problem." Shun Hong waved her hand. Only then did he realize that the other people had disappeared. He asked curiously, "Where are they?" "They went for a walk." Yin shrugged. "Let's wait here for them to come back." Shun Hong didn't understand. Just as she was about to ask, she suddenly heard a scream from the depths of the forest. It was one of the new recruits who was with them. Yin was startled. He frowned. In the next moment, he untied the reins and got on the horse. He went straight to the source of the sound. Chapter 68. The source of the sound was not far away. Yin galloped on his horse, and Shun Hong followed behind him. She shouted as she ran, "Hey, wait for me." As they went further up the mountain, the forest became denser and more moist due to the shade. Almost no sunlight could pass through. In front of people, it felt like the night, gloomy and cold. Yin stopped in front of a bush. Zhang Xian and the other 2 were right in front of him. Their horses were anxiously galloping in place, not daring to take a step forward. Zhang Xian's face was pale, and the other 2 were on the verge of tears. Around the 3 of them, 4 wolves were crouching and growling at them. Yin and Shun Hong happened to come over, and the wolves looked at Yin with murderous gazes. How could there be wolves at this time of the year? Yin felt a little strange. He looked at Zhang Xian and the others. They were all in a sorry state. Yin also noticed that the saber at Zhang Xian's waist was missing. A pack of wolves would attack a person who was alone, but they would not attack the 3 of them for no reason. Yin asked, "What did you do?" Zhang Xian's face was pale, and he did not speak. The recruit behind him said with a sobbing tone, We walked to the front and saw a cave. There were howls coming from inside, so we went in to take a look. There was a litter of wolf pups inside. Did you touch the wolf pups?" Yin asked sternly. Her harsh words scared the recruit. He quickly replied, No, no, we just wanted to take them back and raise them. Not long after we left, we saw these wolves. He simply wanted to pry open these people's brains and see what exactly was inside. Seeing a wolf's den meant that a female wolf was nearby. Not only did they not leave quickly, they even took the wolf pups. Did they really think that the adult wolves would not follow the scent? Where are the wolf pups? Hien asked. We were scared and quickly threw the wolf pups back to them. But what? Hien's heart suddenly had a bad premonition. But one of them fell on a rock and seemed to be dead, the person said. Hien was furious. This pack of wolves would not leave. What are you yelling for? Zheng Xian was angry. Isn't it just a few wolves? Just kill him. How could a person be forced to death by a few beasts? Hien sneered. Is that so? What about your saber? Zheng Xian's expression turned even uglier. After he killed the wolf pup, he had drawn his saber to confront the pack of wolves. However, the pack of wolves was cunning. His saber skills were not bad, but in his nervousness, the wolves took advantage of him and nearly injured him. In a moment of desperation, he even dropped his saber. If it wasn't for that, they wouldn't be facing such a desperate situation now. Cut the crap. Now, we can either die together or think of a way. He forced the words out from between his teeth. Just as they were talking, Shen Hong also rushed over on his horse. When he saw this scene, he jumped in fright, and his voice immediately trembled. So many wolves. Why are there so many wolves? The wolves lowered their bodies and bared their fangs. This was a sign that they were about to attack. If they had a match, it would be fine. Wolves were afraid of fire. However, they had come out in broad daylight and had not brought any with them. Just as he thought of this, the four wolves pounced on the three people surrounding them. The three people screamed in panic. One of their horse legs was bitten and almost fell off. Shen Hong was about to cry. Help! What was the use of calling for help now? There was no one else here. He steeled his heart and rushed in on his horse. With her charge, she had broken the encirclement of the wolves. When the wolves saw her, they rushed towards her. Hien urged, Where are your spears? Take them out and use them. Oh. The two recruits seemed to have woken up from a dream. Only then did they remember their spears. They took them out and waved them around a few times, but they couldn't hold them steady. Hien's heart suddenly turned cold. It was impossible to count on these people. Hien wanted to reach for his saber. Only then did he remember that his saber had been borrowed by Shen Hong. He only had a long stick made of bamboo on him. He shouted, Shen Hong, throw my saber over. Shen Hong responded. She trembled as she pulled out her saber and threw it over. However, Hien was probably too nervous. He didn't even have time to prepare his saber. The long saber fell from the air, leaving only a short saber in its scabbard. It was thrown in the air, and Hien put it away. The wolves surrounded them again, waiting for an opportunity to attack. Hien said, When I tell you to run later, just turn around and run. Don't care about anything else. Run down the mountain until you reach the camp. Let the instructors come up, understand? Shen Hong asked, What about you? I have a way to shake them off. Hien, how can we run? The recruit beside Zheng Xian sobbed. We are surrounded. They will bite the horse legs. If they bite off the horse legs, we won't be able to escape. It's not like there's no way. After Hien said this, the short saber in his hand suddenly flew out. The yang saber was originally small. His movement was fast. In the blink of an eye, everyone only saw a flash of silver light. Suddenly, there was a miserable howl. The smell of blood immediately flowed out. The largest wolf fell to the ground. Blood kept bubbling out of its throat. The saber had completely sunk into its throat. Only the handle of the saber was left outside. The wolf struggled a few times and stopped breathing. Run, Hien shouted. Zheng Xian and the others didn't dare to breathe loudly. They immediately shouted, Jia, and used all their strength to rush out of the forest. They thought that the remaining wolves would chase after them. They didn't dare to look back. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared. The remaining wolves didn't chase after them. They panicked for a moment. When they looked at Hien again, their gazes were extremely fierce. Hien killed the leader of the wolves. Wolves were pack animals. Among these wolves, the largest one was their leader. They listened to the leader's command. He Yin killed them. They were a group of dragons without a leader. They were not as smart as before. But at the same time, as the price of killing the leader, she would face the revenge of these wolves. A wolf bared its white teeth and pounced at her. Its sharp claws and teeth could tear a person's head apart. He Yin swept his staff horizontally in front of him, causing the wolf to roll forward, pouncing on empty air. Gee, it was a very soft sound. He Yin's ears were amazing. When she heard it, her heart sank. The bamboo stick had cracks. It might not be able to withstand a few blows before it broke. How unlucky! She cursed in a low voice. It was just 3 wolves. She could deal with them alone. But now, she had no other weapons on her except for the stick that was about to break. This was really a case of a hero stumped by a penny. No, it was a case of blessings don't come in pairs and misfortunes don't come singly. A person couldn't be forced to death by animals. She thought of Zheng Xian's words and laughed softly. On the battlefield, other than taking the initiative to attack, she was also good at running away. Run! The girl's voice resounded through the forest, startling countless birds. The long stick seemed to have infinite strength. It directly struck forward, forcibly opening a path. She rode the horse with the long stick in her hand. It seemed that she was going to disappear into the vast forest. Behind her, the pack of wolves chased after her. It was a close call. Chapter 69. The wind blew past their ears. After running for a long time, the horse stopped. Shen Hong hugged the horse's stomach. They ran as fast as they could. The mountain road was bumpy, so they didn't dare to stop. Only now did they feel nauseous. They were already halfway up the mountain. When they looked back, they didn't see any wolves chasing after them. A recruit said, "We were saved." Shen Hong looked at his waist in a daze. When he came, he grabbed a bamboo stick. Now that the bamboo stick was given to He Yin, he thought of He Yin. His face turned pale, and he asked in a trembling voice, "Where is He Yin?" There was only one bamboo stick. Shen Hong had lost one of his mandarin duck knives. The other one was stuck in the wolf's throat. He Yin didn't have any weapons. The 3 wolves were charging at him menacingly. How could he escape alone? Should we go back and take a look? He gathered his courage and asked, "What nonsense are you talking about?" Zheng Xian looked at him coldly. "Those wolves are still there. It wasn't easy for us to escape. Are we going back to die? But He Yin is behind us. He can't do it alone." Shen Hong thought of He Yin, and his eyes turned red. He felt that He Yin was a good person. They were just eating pine nuts together. Didn't he ask us to go down the mountain to find the instructor? The recruit beside Zheng Xian said, "Let's go down the mountain and tell the instructor to save him." No. Shen Hong looked at Zheng Xian in disbelief. Zheng Xian's expression didn't change. "If we tell the instructor, he will know that we went over the mountain. He just saved us. If it wasn't for He Yin, we would be dead." Shen Hong said loudly, "You know that the 3 of us almost died. If he went against the wolf alone, he would definitely die." Zheng Xian's voice was louder than Shen Hong's. "Going over the mountain is a violation of military orders. If it's light, you will be punished with a cane. If it's heavy, you will be beheaded. Do you want others to die for He Yin who is already dead? Shen Hong, do you want to do this?" Shen Hong was stunned by the roar. He was naturally timid and afraid of trouble. If it weren't for his family's misfortune, he would have been the young master of a medicine shop for the rest of his life. He would have lived a normal life, without illness or disaster. Now that something had happened, he was already flustered. As soon as he heard that Su Hui's head had fallen to the ground, he shuddered in fear. He still had a mother to take care of at home. If he died, there would be no male in the family. How would the old and young live? Shen Hong stammered, unable to speak. After he go down the mountain, pretend that nothing happened. When the sun sets, tell the instructor that He Yin didn't listen to anyone's advice. He climbed the mountain and couldn't find him. Zheng Xian sat emotionlessly. This was not only to block He Yan's last way out, but also to frame He Yin with the crime of violating military orders. Shen Hong shook her head, but the other 2 were already worried that they would be punished, so they agreed. Zheng Xian stared at Shen Hong and said, "If you want to complain, go ahead. Let's see if the instructor believes you or us." After saying that, he no longer cared about Shen Hong's expression and urged his horse to gallop forward. Shen Hong had no other choice. The mountain was getting dark, so she could only follow. The sky was getting dark, and there was almost no light in the forest. The horse lost its way on Mount Baiwa. He inhaled the bamboo stick and looked back. He breathed a sigh of relief. He had finally shaken off the wolves. This was the first time he had seen wolves so relentlessly chasing after him. He uncurled his lips and thought of the wolves he had encountered in Mo County. At that time, there was a famine in Mo County. All the wolves within 100 miles were caught and eaten. They were not as arrogant as the ones on Mount Baiwa. Thinking of this, he felt that Zheng Xuanda was really brainless. Why would he think of catching wolves to raise? Wolves were animals that could not be domesticated. Those that could be domesticated were domestic dogs that would wag their tails at people, while wolves only knew how to bite people's throats. The horse turned in a circle and did not go any further. There were trees everywhere, and they looked exactly the same. She had not been able to make a mark on the trees to avoid the wolves. She was afraid that they had already climbed over the mountain and did not know where she was. If Shen Hong and the others did not inform Liang Ping in time, they would not be able to leave the forest when it was dark. Without a fire starter, they were afraid of encountering wild animals. They could only spend the night on the mountain. Thinking of this, she sighed and got off the horse. She planned to find a cave to shelter from the wind. Just as she got off the horse and stood up, she suddenly felt that something was wrong. She did not know why, but if she had to, it was probably because of her intuition of danger from years of fighting on the battlefield. She subconsciously tilted her head and felt a black shadow pass over her head. Something scratched her neck and brought out a trace of blood. The horse was startled and raised its front hooves. Ian did not hold the reins tightly, and the horse rushed forward without looking back. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared into the depths of the forest. She turned her head and saw the black shadow that had just pounced on her. It was crouching in the grass, revealing 2 green eyes. It was the wolf just now. Ian looked at the wolf and then looked in the direction it came from. She suddenly realized, among the few wolves just now, there was actually a smart one. It knew that it could not catch up with Yin, who was riding a horse, so it took a shortcut. Baiwa Mountain was not Hiyan's territory, but it was the territory of the mountain beasts. It must have been lurking for a long time, waiting for Yin to let down her guard and then pounce on her and bite her throat. In fact, the wolf had almost succeeded. Yin touched her neck and felt a burning sensation. Her hand was stained with blood. Seeing that its attack had failed, the wolf bared its fangs and pounced on Yin from behind. Yin rolled on the ground to avoid its claws. She was a little anxious. Now that the horse was gone, she could only fight with the wolf. But she only had this stick. When Shen Hong went up the mountain, even if she only had a string of darts, she thought in her heart. She held the stick horizontally and pounced on the wolf's head. The bamboo stick hit the wolf's head. With a bang, it broke from the middle. The wolf's head was hit to the side, but it only bled a little. It looked at Yin and howled furiously twice before pouncing on her again. What kind of broken stick is this? Yin cursed and dodged. The wolf was very cunning. It did not attack from the front. Instead, it pounced on her from behind, intending to bite her neck. Yin dodged a few times, but she did not manage to dodge and was bitten by it. She bent her elbow and stabbed the wolf's stomach. The wolf was hit and cried out in pain, desperately pouncing on her. One person and one wolf wrestled together. The leaves in the forest rustled. Yin forcefully pulled the wolf's head to prevent its mouth from biting her. She thought in her heart, "Do I have to bite this wolf with my mouth?" Just as she thought of this, she suddenly felt that there was nothing under her feet. Before she had time to react, she felt her body fall. She heard a bang sound. The next moment, she and the wolf fell to the ground together. The sky became round, and the tree branches seemed to be higher. Below her feet was bumpy soil, and there was a wolf that had just stood up. She and the wolf fell into the trap together. Chapter 70. The arena became even smaller. It was like an even smaller martial arts stage. The only difference was that her opponent had become a bloodthirsty wild beast. At this moment, Hien didn't have any weapons in his hands. Even the bamboo stick that had been broken into two was gone. The wolf's eyes burst with excitement. It was a smart and cruel animal. In this case, the human would definitely die. Hien's lips curled into a bitter smile. God was so kind to her. Why did he arrange such a difficult situation for her? She was not a miraculous strongman. How could she turn danger into safety every time? This was probably a trap set up by hunters to catch rabbits or foxes. Perhaps it had been too long since the trap was set up, but it was completely covered by dead branches and leaves. Who knew that she would fall into the trap while fighting with the wolf? Now, there was no way out. The wolf slowly stood up. Hien also wanted to stand up. She knew it was not good when she moved. When she fell, she hurt her left leg. Now, when she moved her left leg, it was painful. She had to stand up with the help of the stone wall. The wolf lowered its body and made a low growl. Hien looked down at it. Her back was against the stone wall. She did not move. It took a few steps and suddenly rushed towards Hien. With its bloody mouth open in front of his eyes, Hien could almost smell the disgusting stench of blood. In front of his eyes, Hien recalled the bones he saw on the roadside that were eaten by wolves. Their bodies were mutilated, their faces unrecognizable, and only a pile of rotten meat was left. In the nick of time, she suddenly stretched out her left arm. The wolf rushed toward her neck, but she slapped it away. She used some strength in this slap, but it was no match for a wild beast. She only protected her neck, but in the next moment, her arm was bitten by the wolf. She did not need to look to know that the bite was not light. She did not care at all. Instead, she moved forward as if she wanted to put her arm deeper into the wolf's mouth. Before the wolf opened its mouth, Hien's right hand suddenly chopped forward. A blood-curdling scream erupted from the wolf's mouth. The cunning and persistent wolf struggled desperately in the pit. Its eyes were scratched by the sharp stones, and blood splattered everywhere. Hien let go of her hand. In her palm, there was a small piece of shirtu. The sharp end of the shirtu was still stained with blood. She stabbed the wolf's eyes. From the moment she fell into the trap, she looked around for something that could be used to defend herself. Unfortunately, there were only scattered stones in the pit. She simply found the one that could be used. The wolf lost a pair of eyes. It could not see anything. Because of the pain, it could not care about anything else. It could only struggle in the pit. Hien gritted her teeth. Hien leaned against the stone wall. She used all her strength to press the wolf's head. Blood slowly oozed out. At first it was warm, but gradually it became cold. And his left arm had been bitten by a wolf, and the blood had stuck to his sleeve. He could not lift his left leg, and his neck had been scraped. Needless to say, she was also in a sorry state. But when she looked at the dead wolf, a wave of sadness surged in her heart. She was very similar to the wolf. After losing a pair of eyes, she could only be manipulated by others. Now that she saw the wolf die so miserably, although it was her doing, she thought of all the things that had happened. She felt exhausted. She did not have the strength to do anything else. The sun set. The last of the sunlight disappeared. The forest became dark. She sat quietly with her head lowered. In an instant, it was as if she had stopped breathing. She died quietly. No one in the Liang Province City Guard office knew of the shocking scene on the mountain. When Zheng Xian arrived at the City Guard office, he went with the other two to find the instructor. They purposely stayed at the foot of the mountain for a while before returning. The sun had already set. Only a remnant of the blood-red evening glow was left on the horizon. It spread out brilliantly by the water. Shen Hong did not go with them. She returned to her room. When she returned, the others had already finished eating dinner. Seeing Shen Hong sitting on the side in a daze, someone asked with a smile, "Hey, how did it feel to go up the mountain today? Why does she look so dazed? She can't be so tired that she's stupid, right? That's possible. She can't even do that. She's too weak." Everyone teased her. Thinking that Shen Hong was tired, they did not take it to heart and went to do their own things. After a while, Wang Ba walked in. He was in the same room as Shen Hong. When Wang Ba came in, the recruits in the room all greeted him. Although Wang Ba lost to He Yin in the crossbow competition, everyone still respected him here. Wang Ba also saw Shen Hong sitting on the bed in a daze. He asked casually, "What's wrong with her?" "I don't know. It's her turn to go up the mountain today. When she came back, she was like this," someone replied. Wang Ba glanced at Shen Hong. He felt that she was a bit strange. Although he often bullied this honest person, no matter how much he bullied her, he had never seen Shen Hong in such a daze. He walked in front of Shen Hong and gave her a shove. "What's wrong? Did you encounter a wild beast on the mountain and get scared out of your wits?" It would have been better if he did not say it. Once he said the word wild beast, Shen Hong's body trembled even more violently. His mouth opened and closed, but no one knew what he was saying. Wang Ba leaned closer to listen. He only heard her say, "I'm sorry." "Sorry? Who are you sorry to?" Wang Ba frowned and asked. Shen Hong was still talking to himself. Wang Ba was impatient. He lifted him up like a chicken and asked, "Brat, tell me everything you encountered on the mountain today. If you don't," he shook his fist threateningly, "I'll teach you a lesson." Shen Hong seemed to wake up from his thoughts when he was reminded. Wang Ba looked at him fiercely. He was already feeling guilty. With this provocation, he immediately blurted out, "He Yin? He Yin is still on the mountain." "He Yin?" Wang Ba's heart skipped a beat when he heard He Yin. This person really had a grudge against him. However, he still asked curiously, "What mountain? You guys went up the mountain together today? Why is he still on the mountain after you came down?" "What do you mean?" "There were wolves, so many wolves. He Yin led the wolves away to save us." Shen Hong cried out loud and said everything in one breath. Zhang Xian didn't let us tell the instructor. He even said that He Yin climbed the mountain and went far away. No, they were the ones who climbed the mountain. He Yin saved them, but they wanted him to die and slandered He Yin. He Yin was alone on the mountain without a weapon. "He will die. It's all our fault." He spoke incoherently and incoherently. However, Wang Ba understood the meaning of Shen Hong's words in the blink of an eye. He was stunned for a moment. Suddenly, he became angry and slammed his fist on the table, scaring Shen Hong. "He saved you, but you left him alone on the mountain?" Shen Hong cried. "I didn't want to. I had no choice." Wang Ba looked at him with disdain. "Coward." He turned and left. Chapter 71. When Wang Ba found Liang Jiaodo was talking to Shen Han. Zhang Xian and a few others were standing beside them. Shen Han's expression was extremely ugly. He could only vaguely make out a few words. Disobeying military orders. Climbing the mountain. Zhang Xian was still talking when someone suddenly rushed over. Before he could react, he felt a heavy punch on his face and fell to the ground. "Wang Ba, are you crazy?" Liang Ping was stunned for a moment before he came back to his senses. He shouted at Wang Ba to stop what he was about to do. "Liang Jiaodo, did this brat tell you that He Yin disobeyed military orders and climbed the mountain by himself and hasn't returned yet?" Wang Ba panted. Shen Han and Liang Ping looked at each other. Wang Ba sneered and stared at Zhang Xian, who was crawling up from the ground. "This bastard is shameless. Zhang Xian, do you dare to say who saved you? You King climbed the mountain by yourself and got surrounded by wolves. If it wasn't for He Yin, would you have been able to escape? You not only ran away by yourself, but you also want to slander others. Are you still a man?" Zhang Xian's face was pale. He was beaten until his lips were bleeding. He stood up and wiped the blood off his lips. "Instructor, don't listen to his nonsense. He Yin climbed the mountain by himself. If you don't believe me, you can ask them." He pointed to the other two recruits who went up the mountain with him. The two recruits nodded hurriedly. Yes. He Yin wanted to climb the mountain by himself. We tried to persuade him, but he didn't listen." Wang Ba was furious. He rushed up and wanted to beat them again. "Are you speaking human language?" That Shen Hong was so timid that it was pitiful. After being scared a little, she confessed everything. How could she have the guts to lie? Moreover, He Yin, although Wang Ba didn't like him very much, he knew that He Yin wouldn't take the initiative to court death. Compared to Zhang Xian, He Yin was much more pleasing to the eye. Liang Jiaodo stopped Wang Ba and said angrily, "Stop it, all of you. If the commander-in-chief comes, all of you will be punished." "What's going on? Speak of the devil." Xiao Ju's voice rang out from behind him as soon as he finished speaking. He walked over from the backyard of the Defense Institute and glanced at the crowd. He walked over and said to Shenhan, "Speak." Shenhan's scalp went numb. He answered honestly, "Today they went up the mountain together. He hasn't come back yet." Zheng Xian said that he disobeyed military orders and climbed over the mountain without permission. In the end, he couldn't find anyone and could only rush down the mountain by himself before sunset. "That's not what I heard," Wang Ba sneered. "These ingrates climbed over the mountain first and provoked the wolves. He lured the wolves away to save them, but these people ran away on their own. They didn't care about their brothers' lives and still wanted to slander them. In our mountain bandits, this kind of person is called immoral. Commander-in-chief, don't listen to him." Zheng Xian hurriedly knelt on the ground. "We all tried to persuade Yin, but he didn't listen and insisted on leaving. At that time, the sky was getting dark, so we had to come back first to ask for help." When he spoke, he was sincere and sincere. Xiao Ju glanced at him, but couldn't tell what he was thinking. The sun had completely set, and the last trace of red was swallowed up by the mountain. The forest was silent. If this continued, Hien's chances of survival would only become slimmer and slimmer. Wang Ba gritted his teeth. "Since the instructors aren't willing to take this risk for him, then I'll go save him myself." After he finished speaking, he was about to walk out. "I've been the king of this mountain for so many years. I'm not afraid of a few animals. But then again, in this day and age, humans can't compare to animals." He had only taken one step when with a bang, a sword brushed past his scalp and went straight into the wooden stake in front of him, scaring Wang Ba. He turned around and saw their right army commander-in-chief, Xiao Ju, looking unhappy. He warned Liang Jiao, "Liang Ping, take care of your soldiers." Liang Ping, he braced himself and agreed, but in his heart he cried countless times. He thought that this time, he would be able to gain a good impression in front of military Governor Xiao. But he didn't expect to be called out and criticized. For a moment, he felt disheartened and wished that he had never been here. Shenhan hesitated for a moment, then said, "Commander-in-chief, we'll bring people into the mountain now." "No need," Xiao Ju interrupted him. Wang Ba stared at him in disbelief. Zheng Xian's eyes flashed with a hint of joy. "The terrain on the mountain is complicated. I'm afraid there's a trap." "If you can't do it, I'll go," he said. After he finished speaking, he called out, and a black horse galloped over from afar. This horse was very majestic, with 4 snow-white hooves, 2 green ears, and a unique coat of fur. It moved as if it was riding on clouds, stopping in front of Xiao Ju and intimately rubbing its head against Xiao Ju's hand. This was Xiao Ju's favorite horse, Green Ears. Xiao Ju mounted the horse. Shenhan wanted to say something, but Xiao Ju had already ridden the horse away. Liang Ping asked blankly, "Head instructor, what commander-in-chief said is a trap. Is there anyone else on the mountain?" Shenhan didn't say anything. Of course, he knew that they were suspecting Hien. This time, Hien disappeared on the mountain. Who knew if it was intentional? A trap referred to Hien, not his opponent. Hopefully, they were just overthinking. It was getting colder and colder on the mountain at night. The trap was very deep, and it was difficult for her to climb up alone. Now that she was injured, it was even more difficult for her to move. The smell of blood would attract nearby beasts. If she really walked on the ground, she would be swallowed by the beasts within a few steps. This place was also quite good. Ian looked up at the sky. The night sky was divided by the trap, and only a round one was left. Looking up from here, she could see the shining galaxy. The night was as cold as water, and countless bright stars formed the shadow of the night sky. She shifted her position, and with her head tilted up, she could see the starry sky and felt a little cold. But in this trap, other than her, there was only the corpse of the wolf. Hien thought for a moment and shrank her body into the wolf's stomach. Although it was cold, she still had a body of fur, which could protect her from the cold. Tian reached out to untie the water bottle at her waist. There was only a mouthful of water left in the bottle. She drank all the water and threw the bottle aside. Cold, hungry, and thirsty, she had not experienced this for many years. Suddenly, she remembered what Hong Shan said to her before she left in the morning. "Come back early. Let's celebrate the festival together tonight." It was a clear autumn night. The moonlight was like silk, the fireflies were dancing, and the river was white. At the end of the Black Magpie Bridge, Ian looked up at the stars in the distance and murmured, "Every family is looking at the autumn moon, wearing tens of thousands of red silk." She sighed and smiled helplessly. Today is the Chinese Valentine's Day. In the silent night, the cowherd and the weaver girl were crossing the Magpie Bridge in the distance. A cool breeze blew, blowing away all the joy and hatred. Someone's voice sounded with a mocking smile. "What? You still want to go to the river with your sweetheart?" Hien looked up in surprise, only to see his slender figure suddenly appear in the round sky. He stood at the edge of the trap, the moonlight swaying, flowing bright, and looking at her playfully. It was Xiao Ju. Chapter 72. In the pit, the young man was leaning against the stone wall. He reeked of blood, and half of his body was buried under the wolf's corpse. He was covered in wounds, but he was still in the mood for romance. He looked at her with a pair of bright eyes. They were full of surprise, but there was no trace of joy. He blurted out, "Xiao, Commander-in-Chief, why are you here?" At this time, she thought that no one would come. In fact, after thinking about it carefully, the possibility of Zheng Xian finding someone to save her was very slim. Shen Hong was so timid that she probably wouldn't dare to say anything after a little threat. Since she couldn't count on others, she could only rely on herself. Hien originally wanted to stay here until dawn and wait for the blood on her body to dry. She wanted to recover her strength and then think of a way to climb out of the pit. She didn't expect that someone would come to save her, and she didn't expect that the person would be Xiao Ju. Xiao Ju didn't answer her question. She only asked, "Can you come up by yourself?" Hien replied, "No." The pit was crudely made, but it was too deep. She had no strength in her legs and couldn't climb up. Xiao Ju looked at her, then turned and left. Hien was confused. What did he mean? He left just like that? After a while, he came back with a long object in his hand. Hien looked at it carefully. Wasn't this the bamboo stick that she broke? Although it was broken in two, it just happened to extend from the top. Hien could hold it. Xiao Ju half knelt beside the pit and extended the bamboo stick down. "Hold on." Hien was speechless for a moment. She could only accept her fate and hold on. She thought to herself, "That's right. Do you expect Xiao Ju to fly down and carry you out?" She felt a chill just thinking about it. This person looked like a beautiful jade, but he was very strong. Hien held on to the bamboo stick, and he pulled it up with one hand. When they were about to reach the exit, he extended a hand to Hien, indicating that Hien should hold on to him. That hand's joints were distinct, slender, and beautiful. Hien was about to reach out his hand, but halfway through, his hand froze in the air. Her hands were stained with blood from the fight with the wolf. She didn't know whether it was wolf blood or human blood, but her hands were sticky. This blood-stained hand, when placed next to Xiao Ju's jade-white hand, was really unsightly. Xiao Ju loved cleanliness the most. Hien was a little hesitant. However, the man seemed to be impatient. Without waiting for her to figure out what to do, he reached forward, grabbed her wrist, and pulled her up. There was no longer the suffocating smell of blood from the pit outside, and the sky suddenly became much larger. Stars filled the sky as if they were about to fall from the sky. Countless bright stars gathered together as if they were about to illuminate the entire world. She turned to look at Xiao Ju. The young man stood up, threw away the bamboo stick, and stared at her. After a while, he said, "You killed a wolf?" Hien didn't understand what kind of question was this. She smiled. "Yes, I almost died. I didn't bring any weapons, so I was smashed to death with sure too. I was even bitten twice." Blood seeped out from the young man's sleeves and dyed his originally red robe a dark color. However, Her expression was normal, and she asked indifferently, "Why did the commander-in-chief come here personally? Where are the others?" "It's too late. I came up alone." He tapped his fingers. Ian saw that there was a horse not far away. The horse was not tied up, and when it saw Xiao Ju's actions, it obediently ran to Xiao Ju's side. Ian saw its green ears under the moonlight. His heart skipped a beat. Everyone knew that General Fengyan loved to ride a horse. It traveled thousands of miles in a day and chased after the wind and lightning. Its name was Green Ears. He didn't expect to see it here today. "Then are we going back now?" Ian asked hesitantly. Xiao Ju looked at her incredulously. "You want to spend the night here?" "No, not at all." Ian explained. "I mean, there's no one else here. There's only one horse." Could it be that Xiao Ju wanted her to follow him all the way? Wasn't that too tragic? Tragic beyond compare. He patted Green Ear's head, and the horse obediently lowered its head. Xiao Ju looked at her. "Get on." "Huh? Me?" Ian was shocked. Xiao Ju was willing to let her ride this peerless horse. Did she hear wrongly? Xiao Ju's mouth twitched. "If you want to walk back, it's not impossible." No, I can," Ian replied. "I'm just too happy." What kind of day was it today? She actually got to ride the legendary Green Ears. Ian just wanted to laugh out loud. She limped over to Green Ears' side. This horse was extremely tall and mighty. Originally, the act of flipping onto the horse should have been very dashing. Unfortunately, her entire body was covered in injuries. Even if she wanted to be dashing, she couldn't. She could only grab the saddle with one hand and try to climb up. Ian's leg was injured. Her arm was bitten by a wolf. When she exerted force, the blood that had just dried up immediately seeped out. In the blink of an eye, half of her sleeve was wet. Her face was as usual. Her face was already pale, but she still had a smile on her face. Big drops of sweat rolled down her forehead, and her hair was wet. This person didn't know how embarrassing she was. Xiao Ju raised her eyebrows slightly. Ian was still climbing up with her hands and feet. Suddenly, someone's voice came from above. He said, "Don't you feel pain?" Ian was stunned. In the next moment, someone grabbed her waist and pulled her up. Before she could cry out in surprise, she was already sitting on the back of the horse. There was another person behind her, and the faint scent of moon qilin drifted over, disturbing her thoughts. "Sit tight," Xiao Ju said. Ian couldn't describe her feelings at this moment. She really didn't expect Xiao Ju to carry her onto the horse's back. It should be a hug, right? She didn't feel it clearly. It was too fast. But now he was sitting behind her. Ian was petite, and her head was leaning against his chest. It was like she was in his arms. She was frightened by her own thoughts. Subconsciously, she didn't feel shy, but scared. Xiao Ju wasn't a romantic person. Moreover, she was a man now. Was everything that happened today just a dream? Xiao Ju urged the horse to leave. Ian said, Wait. He asked, "What's wrong now?" "Look at that wolf." Ian pointed at the wolf's corpse in the pit. "It wasn't easy for me to kill it. It's a pity to just leave it here." The man replied coldly, "What do you want? Take it with us?" Ian asked tentatively. After a while, the young man sneered yes. "Really?" Ian turned around in surprise. "Commander-in-Chief, you're such a good person." She didn't expect much. He curved his lips and looked indifferent. "Let it come up. You get off." Ian was speechless. She said, "Pretend I didn't say anything." The horse took 2 steps, and she turned around again. She almost bumped into Xiao Ju. "Why don't I go down and skin the wolf before leaving? It's going to be autumn soon. The weather is cold. Wouldn't it be better to make a pair of wolfskin boots?" She was answered with 2 heartless words. "Shut up." Chapter 73. The horse trotted in the deep mountains. It didn't run very fast. Because it was night, she couldn't see clearly. Ian felt that it was a pity. It wasn't easy for her to ride Green Ear, but she didn't experience the legendary crossing mountains and treading water as if it were flat ground. It was really a loss. Starlight and moonlight seeped through the branches and leaves of the forest. Ian rode on the horse and finally had the mood to look at the surrounding scenery. Looking around, She saw a wolf lying on the ground, not far away. It must be dead. She was surprised for a moment. She took a few more steps forward and saw another wolf corpse. After seeing about 3 such wolf corpses, Hien sensed that this was not a coincidence. She swallowed her saliva and asked carefully, "Shao, Commander-in-Chief, did you do all these? Since I met them on the road, I killed them. Otherwise, it would be troublesome to follow them all the way." He replied. Hien sighed in his heart. Look, as expected of a young killer. Just a word of disagreement, and he started a massacre. No wonder they didn't encounter any wild wolves along the way. It turned out that the more courageous ones were all killed by Xiao Ju. She looked at the wolf corpses again. They were all killed with a sword. The wounds were very small and very precise. Her gaze moved down slightly and landed on the sword on Xiao Ju's waist. Everyone knew that General Feng Yun had a famous horse and a treasured sword. The horse was called Green Ear, and the sword was called Autumn Drinker. Her Qinglang sword was glowing with a green light and could cut iron like mud. It was rumored that Autumn Drinker was sparkling and translucent, like frost and snow. Autumn Drinker was now on Xiao Ju's waist. The sword was not out of its scabbard, so nothing could be seen. These wolves must have died under Autumn Drinker's sword. Since ancient times, treasured swords were given to heroes. Hien felt that she could be considered a hero. When she saw a treasured sword, she couldn't help but want to touch it. She quietly reached out and touched behind her back. Suddenly, she felt the body under her hand stiffen. Hien immediately let go and shouted, "I didn't mean to touch your waist. I just wanted to touch your sword." After a while, she heard the angry voice of someone behind her. "You don't have to speak. I'll be bored to death if I don't talk," Hien said. "Commander-in-Chief, you don't have to be so serious." She said, "Look, you killed so many wolves, but you didn't take them away. In the end, these wolves were taken advantage of by the foxes in the mountains. Not to mention the meat, the wolf skin was the best. The fur of the one I killed was incomplete and could only be used to make boots. But the few you killed didn't damage their fur. It's enough to make a cloak. However, the wolf fur cloak doesn't suit you. Presumably, the material of your clothes is more precious. Why not let me take advantage of it? In winter, I have a wolf fur cloak, and I can roll in the snow." Xiao Ju seemed to be confused by her nonsense. He actually continued her words, although his tone was not very good. He curled his lips and said sarcastically, "You like wolf skin so much. No wonder you didn't even let go of the dead wolf in the pit." "That's not it. I'm just too cold." Hien shook his head. "Governor loves cleanliness and doesn't like dirt. He can't tolerate the blood of animals staining his clothes. We're different. Not to mention dead wolves, I've even slept in a pile of corpses." After a moment of silence, Xiao Ju asked, "When?" "It was when I was young. I don't remember it clearly." Hien looked at the stars in the sky. "At that time, I had no choice but to save my life. So what if it was a pile of corpses? After all, I was the only one who survived." She thought that Xiao Ju would ask her what happened and was prepared to make up a story. Unexpectedly, Xiao Ju didn't ask, so her prepared story fell through. Hien's thoughts went back to the past. Not long after she arrived at the Mo County, a group of Fuyue army recruits encountered the Shi Chang people at the edge of the desert. They were all recruits and didn't know how to fight. They just relied on their blood. But their blood was quickly dispersed by the Shi Chang people's savagery. In the end, the small group of recruits was completely wiped out. Hien was also seriously injured at that time, but she didn't die. She hid under the corpses and still had a breath left. The Xichang people set the corpses on fire and left. At that time, Hien thought that she was doomed and would die in this desert. But God didn't let her die. It suddenly rained in the middle of the road, and the rain extinguished the flames on the corpses. Hien didn't have the strength to move. She didn't dare to move. She didn't even dare to cry. The young man who was fooling around with her yesterday was now a corpse that couldn't move. The brother who was scolding her in the morning was already decapitated. She lay in the wreckage and experienced the cruelty of war for the first time. She lay in a pile of corpses and smelled the blood. She cried all night with her eyes wide open. At daybreak, a passerby passed by. He buried all the corpses on the spot and helped them collect their corpses. He also found He Yin, who was on her last breath, and saved her life. Later on, He Yin thought countless times that although she was a man in the capital, she wasn't strong enough. In her heart, she probably left herself a way out. But after that night, she didn't leave herself a way out. She wasn't a girl. No one could wipe away her tears on the battlefield. The only thing she had to do was to survive every life and death battle. At any time, surviving was the most important thing. In order to survive. So what if she had to stay with the wolf corpses? Chapter 75. When He Yin was young, she wasn't as smart as she was now. If she were to look at her past self with her current eyes, she would feel that she was too slow. At that time, she wasn't very good at both civil and martial arts. She was about the same as Chung Li-su now. She could also be considered a good-for-nothing young master. However, unlike Chung Li-su, who had a powerful uncle to protect her, the He family wasn't considered much in the Xianchang dojo. Therefore, she wasn't as likable as Chung Li-su. Moreover, when she was young, she always wore a mask all day long. She always looked out of place with everyone else. Because she had a guilty conscience, she never dared to hang out with the other youths to avoid giving herself away. After a while, she was ostracized by the other students of the Xianchang dojo. The rejection of the youths came very directly. At first, they just didn't play with her. When they played Kuju, they didn't call her. Later, it became even worse. As for the reason, it wasn't a big deal. It was actually because she worked too hard. When He Yin was young, he had a one-track mind. He grasped the principle of the clumsy bird flies first. He really started from being a clumsy bird. The worse the civil and martial sciences, the more he wanted to study. He studied more seriously than anyone else. Even though the teachers of the Xianchang dojo felt that this child really wasn't suited for studying and practicing martial arts, they were often moved by He Yan's persistence in studying. Therefore, they often praised He Yin in class. Studying diligently is like a sprout in spring. It doesn't seem to grow, but it grows day by day. You all look at Irufei. You should learn from him. They were all 14 or 15 years old youths. They had always loved to compete and win. It was fine if they learned from others, but why should they learn from He Yin? Why should they learn from him, who was always last place even though he worked hard every day? Was there something wrong with his brain? However, the teachers seemed to like He Yin very much. Anger rose from the hearts of the youths. Jealousy and disdain mixed together. They found a masked boy more and more unpleasing to the eye. Every 3 to 5 days, they would give He Yin some trouble. Today, they deliberately cut He Yan's clothes during the knife competition. Tomorrow, they would feed sneeze grass to her horse during horse training. Sometimes, they would deliberately poke holes in her boots. When she accidentally fell to the ground, they would let the stones cut her soles. He Yin crawled up from the ground in a sorry state. The teenagers hid together and laughed at her. He Yin was stupid when he was a teenager, so he couldn't complain to the teachers. The teachers didn't know what the students did in private. He Yin had a difficult time. One day, it was winter and the weather was very cold. He Yin was young at that time and had no resistance. He was defeated in an instant. After applying the medicine, he left. He Yin whispered to him, "Your medicine, it's for you." The young man casually replied, "You're so stupid. You'll have a lot of chances to get hurt in the future. Keep it for yourself." His words came true. Later on, she had countless chances to get hurt. The ointment in the mandarin duck pot had long been used up, and the pot was later lost by her in a battle. Thinking about it, it was quite a pity. The next day, the young men went to the school. They found that the copybooks on their desks were wet with water. The handwriting was unrecognizable. It was a mess. Who did it? Come out. I promise I won't beat him to death. They roared fiercely. Isn't it simple? See whose copybook is clean. Look inside. We'll find the one who has a grudge against us. Someone offered a brilliant idea. Ian's heart tightened. He was very annoyed. No wonder she said he was stupid. He didn't even think of this. Her copybook was clean and tidy. After a little inspection, wasn't it him? Forget it. He had already done it. He was a real man. He dared to take responsibility for his actions. She steeled her heart and accepted her fate. She looked on helplessly as the young men asked the students in the school to take out their copybooks for inspection. They were almost in front of her. Ian gathered his courage and was about to stand up and shout, "I did it." Suddenly, someone came in and slammed it on the table. This movement was too loud. Everyone looked over and saw a handsome young man in a white robe leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. He had a lazy expression and said carelessly, "I did it." There was an uproar. Brother Huaijin, did you really do it?" Someone asked carefully. Xiao Huaijin was not Hiru Fei. Who in the capital dared to provoke him? Xiao family could oppress people to death. Even the teacher had to protect him. The emperor had personally praised him. "It was me," he answered righteously. "But why?" That person asked with a sullen face. "There's no reason." The young man glanced at him and answered indifferently, "My hand slipped." Uffed! Ian couldn't hold back his laughter. Sensing everyone's gaze, he quickly turned around and acted as if nothing had happened. What happened later? Later, the matter was left unsettled. Because it was Xiao Huaijin, no one dared to say anything. They could only admit that they were unlucky. Creak! The door was pushed open. Shimushua walked in. She took the empty medicine bowl and water basin away. She told Ian not to press on his wound before leaving. From the narrow window in the room, she could see the sky in all four corners. A bright moon hung in the sky, and the stars shone brightly. She muttered in a low voice, "Today is Chinese Valentine's Day." She had never experienced such a festival. In the past, she dressed as a man. Chapter 77. Zheng Xian and two new recruits were standing beside the practice field of the Liangzhou Guard. Seeing Xiao Ju approach, Shen Han hurried forward. "Commander-in-Chief, I heard that the person was found?" Shen Han asked. "Liang Ping is keeping an eye on him." Shen Han sighed in relief. He Yin was currently under suspicion. If he suddenly disappeared, it might have been intentional. It was safer to keep suspicious people under one's nose. However, since the person had been found, it was time to consider another matter. Zheng Xian said that He Yin crossed the mountain by himself. Shen Hong said that He Yin crossed the mountain to save Zheng Xian. "Commander-in-Chief, what do you think?" Shen Han asked. Xiao Ju said, "Zheng Xian is lying." Shen Han paused. "There are hoof prints on the mountain path. I also found traces of a wolf cub falling to its death," Xiao Ju said. He Yin was indeed saving someone. Shen Han's expression darkened. If that's the case, Zheng Xian and the others are not righteous. No matter how outstanding these new recruits were, once they entered the battlefield in the future, who knew if they would change sides at the last moment? Soldiers could die under the enemy's blade, but they could not die under the secret arrows of their comrades. However, Shen Han thought of another matter. If Yan's words are true, can she be clear to suspicion? If Yan was someone who would disregard his own life for his comrades, perhaps he should change his view of her. "No," Xiao Ju's cold voice answered him. "He killed a wolf with his bare hands in the pit on the mountain. This person cannot be underestimated." He raised his eyebrows. "I'm afraid he has secrets." Shen Han did not dare to say anything more. Although the Liangzhou Guard was thousands of li away from the capital, the situation was complicated. No one dared to lower their guard. Shen Han looked at Zheng Xian and the others. They were sitting far away. At this moment, their expressions were uneasy. Although Zheng Xian tried his best to remain calm, he did not know that his lie had been exposed. "Commander-in-Chief, how do you plan to deal with these people?" Shen Han asked. "They cross the line and interfere with others. They have a sharp tongue and are unscrupulous." Xiao Ju's expression did not change. Her voice was calm. "For slandering the army, behead them. Shenhan's heart trembled. He bowed his head and said yes. When Ian woke up the next day, the sun was already high in the sky. There was no one in the room. She sat up and stared blankly at the sunlight coming through the window. Ian asked curiously, Mississippi. Ian was surprised. He asked, Miss? He asked. Ian asked. He asked. This is today's medicine. Take it first. Shimushiwe placed the bowl of medicine on the small table in Ian's room.